Good morning, all participants, and welcome to today's webinar, Cryptocurrency, a safe market, exploring crimes and trends in the digitalized world, hosted by Asian Law Students Association National Chapter Thailand. Thank you everyone for joining us here today at our very first kickoff webinar for ALSA Thailand Legal and Financial Series, The Wolf of Law Street. The Wolf of Law Street is a webinar-based series providing insightful events regarding the legal aspects in financial matters. Today's webinar is the first episode of the series, and there are a lot more interesting ones to come. Hope all of you have had a good morning or day, depending on where you are. My name is Hirasai Wangpanit, and I will be your MC for today. Today's presentation will be separated into three main sessions with our honorable guest experts for each topic. Our first topic today is an introduction to cryptocurrency, and Mr. Prin Panishapak will be our speaker. Mr. Prin Panishapak is the deputy leader and head of economics team of the Democrat Party, the former governor of Stock Exchange of Thailand, and the advisor to the deputy prime minister. Followed by Mr. Alexandru Kashiloyu, who will be talking about crimes in the cryptocurrency world. Mr. Alexandru Kashiloyu is the UNODC Cybercrime and Cryptocurrency Advisor, Regional Coordinator of Southeast Asia and the Pacific, and former Digital Crime Officer with Interpol Global Complex for Innovation. Another topic to be presented today is the safety, risk, and trends of the cryptocurrency market, which will be talked about by Mr. Pawi Jenviranon, Law Lecturer at Thammasat University, Research Affiliate at Cambridge Center for Alternative Finance, and Regulatory Specialist for Digital Economy Thailand. If you have any questions during the presentation, feel free to type them into the chat box and the speakers will answer them later during the Q&A session. There will also be e-certificates for all the participants who fill in a Google form, which will be provided later at the end of the webinar, so stay tuned. If anyone is comfortable with turning on your camera, that would be highly appreciated. A live CC function is also available, so anyone who would like to see the captions during the presentation, feel free to turn on the live transcription function. There will also be a Kahoot session afterwards, so be prepared. As the webinar is about to begin, I would like to invite the President of ALSA Thailand National Board to give a welcome speech. Please welcome Mr. Nicholas Ranza.
In April 2021, the price of a single Bitcoin reached an all-time high of 64,000 US dollar. That is exactly 64,000 times more than the price of Bitcoin in 2011, which was a single US dollar. I sure wish I invested in Bitcoin in 2011. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of our participants around the world. I'm Nicholas Ranza, and it is my honor to be welcoming all of you to Cryptocurrency, a Safe Market webinar. I hope all of you are doing well, staying safe and healthy during this pandemic. Before I commence, I would like to say thank you. Firstly, thank you to all the participants. Your presence here today means a lot to us at ALSA Thailand. Secondly, thank you to our experts, Mr. Prin Panishapak, Mr. Alexandru Kashilu, and Mr. Pawi Jenviranon, who took their time out of their busy schedule to educate and share their experience with us today. Thirdly, we are fortunate to have the support from Allen and Overy and Sombur Ritichai Panuwat Pasawan as our gold sponsor for the Wolf of Law Street series. Thank you. Lastly, to my awesome national board, this event would not be possible without your hard work. Today marks the premiere of the first webinar of our newly launched series, which we are proud to announce the title as The Wolf of Law Street. In the world where finance and law are both dominating fields, virtually in every aspect of human life, the Wolf of Law Street series introduces new aspects of the two. We here at ALSA Thailand recognize the importance of staying up to date and acknowledging new trends and development. The Wolf of Law Street series is being launched as a long-term project consisting of at least 3 interconnecting episodes to respond to the growing demand in the current world. We aim to provide participants with the opportunity to get insight from experts and apply it not only to their daily life, but also their professional life as well. I sincerely hope you will enjoy and acquire new knowledge today. ALSA, always be one.
Thank you, Mr. Nicholas, for the wonderful speech. That was a very warm welcome for our participants. Everyone, this event would not be possible without our honorable sponsors. We would like to extend our gratitude to the law firms Allen and Overy and Sombun Rithichai Panuwat Pasawan for sponsoring our The Wolf of Law Street series. With their kind help, this series was made possible. We will now watch some videos from our esteemed sponsors. Welcome everyone once again to this webinar. We will now officially begin our presentation. I would like to remind everyone once again that if you have any questions, please type them into the chat box and the speaker will answer them later at the end. Also, I would like to ensure that everyone has changed your Zoom name to your first name and make sure to keep your microphone muted to prevent any interruptions. It is now time to begin the first presentation on an introduction to cryptocurrency. Please welcome Mr. Prin Panishapak to come forward and begin the session.
ครับสวัสดีครับ Good morning everyone. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes,
Judging
we
by
can hear
the
you.
Thank you. Judging by the subtitles coming up, I was going to say that you probably can hear me clearly. A couple of things to get us kick off on Saturday morning. I'm most grateful for ALSA Thailand for kindly hosting this and bringing me up to share some of my thoughts and viewpoint. As you probably saw from my title, I have been working mainly in the financial field since 1999, and a couple of years before that, all of you here may not be old enough or haven't grown up enough to, or some of you haven't been born, maybe 1997, Thailand faced one of the largest financial crises that the Asian region has ever seen. And it's interesting how far we've come from that. You know, it's interesting how far we've come to the age now where often, you know, people would ask, wow, what's the quickest way to be a millionaire, especially a Bitcoin millionaire? You know, Bitcoin is obviously one of the biggest cryptocurrency in the world. And some people would say, you begin by becoming a Bitcoin billionaire first. So sometimes it's a sad joke that some billionaire become a millionaire because of investing at the wrong timing for Bitcoin. Just like in 1997, when Thailand was the epicenter of the Asian financial crisis. And I have to tell you a little bit of background of this Asian financial crisis and a few crises to understand cryptocurrency or how Bitcoin evolved. Because I believe that in this Zoom room where various hundreds of people are in the room, I think I'm the only one who has got a chance to have met someone who claimed to be Satoshi Nakamoto. And this was back in 1990. This was back in 2009, so a long time ago. And I don't think any of you have met anyone who claims Satoshi Nakamoto back in those years. At that time, I was working for Credit Lyonnais CLSA as a regional manager based in Hong Kong, and I was flying out to San Francisco. And at a meeting, I took a 1-hour drive to Napa Valley. It was one of the meetings in the Corneros Inn. It was a lovely, lovely place, by the way. If any of you have got a chance to travel after COVID kind of gone away, then you should visit Corneros Inn in Napa Valley, which is about an hour from San Francisco. At that forum, very small gathering of people, including some of the world's biggest fund managers, we were talking about the new future of the new economy, of the frontier market. I was speaking on the frontier market in Asia, in ASEAN, particularly the CRMVT, the Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar, Vietnam, and Thailand, and the opportunities that the Greater Mekong sub-region, GMS, would offer to the investment world. The guy who got up to speak after me claimed he was Satoshi Nakamoto. And he started obviously speaking about the new white paper, the new project that was called Bitcoin. And that was the first time I ever heard the term Bitcoin in my life, and he started talking about how actually blockchain has existed for more than several decades, but yet it has yet to emerge to be a kind of Internet 4.0, or the main system that people are using. He began obviously attacking central bankers. And by attacking central bankers and attacking politicians, politicians are attacked everywhere in the world, by the way, this day, not just in Thailand. But let me tell you a little bit about the background of financial crisis history and why it's relevant for the story that Satoshi Nakamoto was telling me in 2009. Asian financial crisis in Thailand occurred because people were overborrowing, and overborrowing, especially a lot of the foreign currencies. You can imagine if you're living in Thailand at that time, the company was expanding fast. It was very loose, the monetary policy, and very expansionary mode. And at that time, the interest rate in Thailand was extremely high, in double digits, whereas interest rate abroad was single digit, like this current time, very normal interest rate time. Interest rate is the price of money. Remember that. So if the price of money is so expensive, like in Thailand, Thai people went to use the window from BIBF that the Bank of Thailand provided to borrow money cheaply from abroad to fund domestic growth. And domestically, economy was growing, booming very fast, but there was a bubble forming in the form of the real estate, in the form of the stock market, in the forms of various M&A, mergers and acquisition activities. Obviously, the bubble party had to end one day, and it ended when the government devalued the Thai baht. And it was the right strategy to do at that time, because obviously Kun Chawalit Yongjaayut government was already bringing the Thailand on the brinks of the financial collapse, and he resigned, and then Kun Chon Lik Pai came in. At that time, interestingly, it was my father, Dr. Supachai Panichapak, along with Kun Tarin Niman Hemin, and Chon Lik Pai, the prime minister then at that time, who had to bring Thailand out of the Asian financial crisis. And at that time, we had big brother from America, Lawrence Summer, Bob Rubin, the Secretary of State, the Secretary of Finance, like the finance minister, basically, who would flew into Thailand regularly about updates, about IMF help, about World Bank helping Thailand to recover. They demanded that we have to lower our spending, tighten our belt, cut costs. We have to increase the tax. Everything was not counter-cyclical. It was bad, because imagine this, in the cyclical, meaning that the country, everything was going down, was crashing. The prices, stock market was crashing, and a lot of people the company were going out of business, people were losing their jobs. A bit like now, except that at that time, a lot of big corporates were going out of business. At the moment, no big corporates are really going out of business. It's really the SME, the smaller guys, startup who are going out of business. So all the big guys were going out of business. In the whole kind of deflationary mood and feel. 59 financial institutions will close. We were forced to take on a very bitter pill from the IMF and World Bank and the Americans. However, that bitter pill that we swallow made us grew up stronger and made us become more disciplined. So in this financial crisis right now we are facing because of COVID-19, it was a healthcare crisis and morphed into this economic crisis, and could be a financial crisis if we're not handling things properly. So imagine that back at that time when counter-cyclical measures were not used. But many years later, when we see the American financial crisis we call it hamburger crisis, right? The epicenter being USA. That's the world's biggest global financial crisis, GFC. You see America printing money. You see America using quantitative easing, QE, which is a monetary policy, i.e. they're increasing the supply of money into the system, hoping to buy time and cutting interest rate to close to zero. Various countries cut interest rate to minuses. Basically you have to pay money to put your money into the bank account. On the fiscal policy, the taxpayers' money from the Ministry of Finance are being used to purchase bonds, government bonds, private sector bonds, to purchase equities, in order to shore up confidence, in order to make sure that those companies like Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, AIA, AIG, Citibank, Goldman Sachs, you name it, those guys are not going bust because of the stimulus and the money from the Ministry of Finance, which is basically a taxpayers' money when it comes from the Ministry of Finance money. And taxpayers' money, not all taxpayers are investors. Not all laymen who are walking on the streets invest in stock markets or bond markets or the FX or the property market. In fact, most average Joes, most average Americans were just normal people who don't invest in stock market. Just like most Thai people, they do not get access to capital. They don't invest in stock markets. Only about 1 to 2 million people in Thailand invest in stock market, which the population of 70 millions now, Same as in America. So at that time, there was a moral hazard that you socialize the loss and privatize the gain, meaning that when the loss occur, or rather, when the benefit happened, i.e. when the stock market was going up, when the economy is doing well, obviously the company profit is good and the shareholders get a good return. The stock market tend to go up. In a bad time, the company profit is pretty bad the company share price tend to go down. Economy is tough. It could be recession. It could be minus growth, and stock market could crash. So that is normal time for globalization, for capitalism. But in 2009, in 2008, when the global financial crisis hit, they did everything that they told Thailand not to do, i.e. they counter-cyclical measure, they increased the spending, they cut the tax, they cut the interest rate, they kept financial institutions open, they didn't close down. They try to save, as I say, save Goldman Sachs, save Citibank, save Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac. So when all those institutions are safe, and when the public money is being used to save private firms, that's a moral hazard. This is the key points that Satoshi Nakamoto in 2009, a year after the global financial crisis blew up, he was giving this speech that I'm telling you the story now because why is he saying this? He's saying this because the trust in the establishment, the trust in the financial system that relies on central banks. On the US dollar notes, there is a saying that in God we trust on the US dollar note. And in God we trust, who is the God of the world financial system? Who? Is the most powerful central bankers, right? The Americans, the US Federal Reserve. It used to be it used to be Alan Greenspan, then Ben Bernanke, Janet Yellen, Jerome Powell. All these people are the god of the world financial system. They get together with the interest rate committee, the monetary policy committee, the MPC, to set the interest rate. Interest rate is the price of money. I reiterate, it's very important that you remember this, because this is the reason why that Satoshi and many people are citing why Bitcoin occur, why there is a challenge to the establishment, because the moral hazard that was provided by the regulators, by the policymakers, the politicians, by the central bankers, who suddenly doing an unorthodox monetary policy making, the unorthodox fiscal policy making, the combined unorthodoxies and the irrational exuberance that you've seen in the capitalism system. The capitalism system doesn't, equally divide the returns to the poor and the rich. Most people are still poor, and most people are still not getting the equitable treatment from the capitalism system that the globalization world brings. So Satoshi Nakamoto was saying that a system based on trust, a system based on IT, not based on human, because people who decide interest rate are humans. They are the one who sits on the monetary policy committee. They have emotion. They have friends who are politicians, who are regulators, who are influencing that decision, and was pushing them to cut rates, pushing them to print money. When you print money, the more you print, it means that the people who hold that currency, the US dollar back then, is definitely losing the purchasing power, right? So the Bitcoin proponent started with this man, Satoshi, one of the 38 people who wrote up the Bitcoin white paper, is claiming that this is the social issue, it's a moral hazard, that the world's most powerful people in the financial world are not regulating the system properly, providing moral hazards. Back in 1997, 98, 99, they told Thailand to do different things. They do everything opposite to what they told Thailand to do. Americans used to have a saying, do as I told you to do, don't do as I do. It's become a sad reality that they actually follow through on this, in the financial world. And that's why Satoshi is saying that trust the system. And the system is blockchain. Blockchain is a decentralized system. There is no one single command. There is no centralized system that control what to do. If you go to open a bank account, let's say because we are in Thailand, so if you go to open a bank account, Bangkok Bank, Kasikorn Bank, Krung Thai Bank, Siam Commercial Bank, any banks out there, you sign a paper. As long as you sign that paper, you lose the ownership of your data. And data is the gold mine in the digital world, in the 4.0 world that we are living in now and the future. Data is like gold mine. You sign out your data, and the banks got your data. Once the banks got the data, they can do whatever with your data. In fact, many of you here, I'm sure, have more than 1 million baht in your bank account. Some of you have more than 10 million baht in your bank account. You get private bankers calling you up sometimes. You get sometimes, tellers on the front of the receptions calling you, selling you products, financial products like the insurance, like the mortgages, like the loans, investment funds. All this, sometimes when they call you, they know your name, they know your address, they know how much cash you have in the bank account. I had a friend who a bank called him up and say, hey, you've got 10 million baht in your bank account. You need to invest. You need to go to invest in Korean funds, some funds and all this stuff. He's shocked because he never know that person. That person is not even a management in the bank. He's just a teller, just a reception who want to sell a product, sell the financial products to him. So how does he get hold of your information? So much information that he would know your salary, know where you live. It can be dangerous, So in the digital world now that you're seeing all this blockchain, the blockchain is decentralized, meaning that you hold the key. You are the owner of your own financial key. And then you transact, you interact directly with someone who you want to transact with. Say you want to transfer money from, let's say, Kun Prin, transfer money to Mr. B. You transfer it directly without the middleman, without the financial institution. You cut out the middleman. And this direct transaction occur in the system where it is an open architect. And there are millions of people now holding this key, to the Bitcoin key, that when you Bitcoin, it's faster, it's safer, it's less cost to transact. That's why it's so appealing that you can transfer the money from Thailand to England, within a few minutes or seconds, without lower financial cost than using Swift or using your bank to transfer at a higher cost, and take days. It could be 2 or 3 days until your money get there. So the system of blockchain, which is behind Bitcoin, you have to separate the two things. Bitcoin is like the application in front. It's like you're using the internet, and the internet has application like Zoom that we are using now, or like Facebook, or application Line and Google and so on and so forth. The blockchain is a system behind the applications like Bitcoin, Ethereum, ADA. Some people now having funny coin or shit coins like the Dogecoin, which has a funny Shiba dogs and all this stuff. So there are various thousands of cryptocurrencies now in the world, and they have various usage. And some come with scam. There is never free money in this world. There's a saying, money never sleep, but it's also saying you have to work hard to earn. So what I'm saying is, people who started this whole cryptocurrency, the Bitcoin being the first well-known cryptocurrencies in the world, they started being rebels against the financial establishment. They want to see a decentralized world. They didn't think Bitcoin is a new currency, by the way. Bitcoin is a new gold. It's a new assets. It could be a financial assets like gold. Gold is like a store of value. Bitcoin, some people say, it doesn't have a store of value. But who is to argue what would make a good store of value? In the old days, they used to use horses and donkeys and cows, animals, to transact. They would, the Thai was saying, they transact by exchanging animals, But as things progress, they use sometimes the shells, of the snails. They use the shells of the clams and so on and so forth. They use the rare earths. They use minerals. They use coppers. They use tins. They use silver, and then they use gold to transact, and then become the gold standards, where people use gold as a gold standards with 21 million tons is stored in Fort Knox backing, and then there is a paper money, backing the paper money. Who's Fort Knox if they take that 21 million tons to exist? I bet no one has checked recently. It probably no longer exists now. Probably gone. Maybe Donald Trump has already gone and stolen it and gone and used it in his built golf courses around the world, perhaps. Jokingly. But, there are people who do not even know the value of the paper money. In fact, the US dollars could be worth nothing at the moment because it's so much indebtedness. It's the funny jokes is in Thailand, people crazily worry about the debt level. We only 60% debt level, debt to GDP, but in the US it's already 300+%. And yet the US dollar is being seen as worth more than a Thai baht. So the value of money. Who is to say what is the value of a paper money? It's backed by the institution like the central bank, like the Ministry of Finance, like the credibility that the policymaker sets, like how much people want to use your money. So as the growing popularity of the digital world, as the growing groups of the young millennials growing up, the digital assets, the digital currency are becoming more and more in the use and becoming more and more popular. Being popular doesn't mean it's going to be right, doesn't mean it's going to go up all the time, doesn't mean you're always going to make money from it, because as I say, there are various usages for cryptocurrency. Bitcoin is being seen as a protocol currency or something that is like a digital gold, basically. So it has that kind of value where it's the first digital currency. So for me, Bitcoin will always have its value. But there are other various currency like Ethereum, which is like a smart contract. Ethereum is an automation where you, like an MOU, memorandum of understanding, where you sign something, and as it meets that MOU or meets the contracts, it automated clicks and it action. So Ethereum has one use. There are other coins that are not protocol coin, but it's a shareholder. It's the rights to ownership of an asset or a shareholders, basically. So people issue coins, like in Thailand we have Sansiri, which is a property firm that just recently issued a Sansiri coin. Basically, Sansiri coin would allow you to be an ownership, of future projects of Sansiri condos. It's almost like a REIT. They issue like a REIT, but in the digital world. REIT is a real estate investment trust, as you know. And Sansiri is one of the first companies in Thailand to successfully issue this. And people can get access to that, invest in it, and they're selling at the moment. I'm not saying you should invest in it, and this is not an investment recommendation, but various companies would use it as a tools to raise capital. And it's important because capital this day can be expensive, and sometimes banks don't provide capital. They don't lend money out in the uncertain COVID world. So often entrepreneurs would go to digital asset world to get access to capital that they need. And for SME, small medium enterprise, for startups, I'm wearing a t-shirt here of a startup nation, trying to promote Thailand, that we need to be more of a startup nation. We need to think things out of the box. We need to do things in a different fashion. And we learn from lessons from abroad. But when Thai company want to raise capital, raise through ICO, initial coin offering, or STO, security token offering, this a new way, new ways to raise capital, to raise money for funding. Another company besides Sansiri called JMart, 3 or 4 years ago. You probably know JMart, where Kun Tum Adisak Sukumvitya started the company, being one of the largest retailers of electrical appliances and mobile phones. JMart raised digital assets through the process called ICO, initial coin offering, issuing coins that's tradable on the exchange, on the digital asset exchange. And this coin is called JFin coin, like a J financial coin. And JFin coin project is to use in the ecosystem of JMarts to buy and sell their products, to use it in the future for lending, But this coin is a utility token. So remember, I give you 3 coins now: protocol, the assets like Bitcoin or Ethereum. You have shareholders ownership coin, investment coin that the people use, like Sansiri is issuing at the moment. And then you have utility coin, the coin that you can use for a product, you can buy and sell, you can use it for utility purposes. And JFin coin want to be a utility coins that can use in the real world. Now, there are various coins now that are in the real world that are utilities and can be used as a function coins. So those are the 3 main functions of a coin. In the new world now, there are other various coins like NFT, non-fungible tokens. Coins can be called as tokens, same thing. A non-fungible token is a form of digital arts where various artists want to express, their artistic ability on the digital world, so they can design through graphic design and whatnot. In the old world, you buy paintings, but in this digital world, you can bring that painting onto a uniqueness on digital platform where the coding would allow you to be a sole ownership of this digital artworks. And that's why non-fungible tokens works to buy and sell the digital arts product. There are fan tokens, which, unfortunately, before the regulation from the Security Exchange Commission, SEC, the regulators here in Thailand, they banned the issue of the fan tokens on the digital asset exchange. So people like Kun Bloom, Surabot Leak Pai, Bloom Viaso, Gay Guy Slider, and B the Scar, and SPD Spider. All of these are influencers on YouTube, YouTubers. They want to issue the fan tokens for their fan base to trade and to get the fan meets, a bit like BNK48, where they sell their tickets and they get to shake their hands, get to hear the songs, all the stuff. This is the fan tokens in the digital world. So in the future, you can see musicians issuing tokens like this, or be a stars. There are people who can issue for their celebrities to monetize from their celebrity. So that's another form of coins. There are various cryptocurrency projects this day that is using the term farming or staking. This is a bit like in the old world where you would stake your cryptocurrency asset. If you open your cryptocurrency account, and I hope after listening to a few people here, I urge you to open a cryptocurrency account. This is not investment advice. I want you to do it because then you understand that you have a private key, understand that you can't lose your password or your code, or else you would lose all your digital asset, all your money. You would learn in the real world. If you just listen to me, listen to Alex, listen to the doctor, various people who are in the academic world, you never get to do it in real life. So you have to open a wallet, open the digital wallet, open account with one of these digital assets. I'm not promoting any one of them in particular, but there are 6 or 7 of them now, whether it's Bitcup, whether it's Stangpro, whether it's Sipmex, whether it's Upbit, Huobi, Thailand. There are various, there's 5 or 6 or 7 exchanges where you can check them out and check their services, and open accounts at one of them, and see how it trades, see how you invest, because there are various scams out there. You have to be careful. And I don't want to end on a negative note, but with all opportunities, there can be crisis and there can be difficulties or challenges. And there are scams, there are projects that are out there to be fraud, outright frauds. Not fraud in the sense of, a few years ago where Jamie Dimon, the CEO of JP Morgan, would come out and call Bitcoin as a fraud. And now he's changed. He's urging his clients to invest in Bitcoin and transactions in the digital currency. He's accepting it. JP Morgan has now setting up funds to potentially invest in digital assets. Fidelity Asset Management, Goldman Sachs, they all have a desk that trade digital assets. So the last 10 and 11, 12 years, Bitcoin has come a long way and digital assets has come a long way. But there are scams. People typically trade and buy and sell Bitcoin because they want to make money. They want to make a quick buck. But remember the lessons I told you at the beginning of my speech. How to become a Bitcoin millionaire by being a billionaire at first, then you be a billionaire and you become a millionaire. So you lose a lot of money to learn, and a lot of scam projects out there. How do you differentiate the red flag from the scams and the bad stuff? Scams often come with faulty promises, promises that can never be filled. For example, they may promise 20% return in 1 month, guarantee 20% return. There is nothing guaranteed in investing in cryptocurrency. Do not think it's easy. It's not easy. You see people make quick money, during COVID time, Bitcoin goes up a lot, but oh my God, it can also go down a lot. You've seen Bitcoin coming from zero, right? Zero has gone to 200, 200 has gone to 80, 80 has gone to 2,000, 2,000 come back to 200, 200 has gone to 20,000. This is US dollar, by the way. And to 20,000 US dollar, it's come down to 2,000 US dollar, 2,000 US dollar, it's gone to 61,000 US dollar, 61,000 has gone down to 30,000 US dollar, and now it trades around 40,000 US dollar. So it is highly volatile, can be very risky if you don't know what you're doing. So my urge is join seminars like this, like the ones that ALSA Thailand is organizing like this, to learn, because invest in yourself. Invest in yourself is the most important thing to do in your life, because that way you would never lose the asset. You're always going to have the knowledge in your mind. You learn from people who's been there, done that, or done the wrong things. I've lost a lot of money investing in stock market, when I started working in 1999, because thinking it was going to be a boom in internet. And it was a boom in internet. There was also a bust after a boom. There's also a crash after a bubble can burst. So in 2001, there was a dot-com bubble that bursted. I lost a lot of money investing in stocks that are related to internet. And I never forget that lessons, So I urge you to invest, but at affordable money. If you have 100 baht, you may invest 1 baht. 1%, 2% of your asset. Don't put everything into Bitcoin, because you could also lose everything in the investment. So my advice is to study a lot, to learn from people who know, attend seminar like this, A crisis like COVID can also be a crisis like COVID can also be an opportunity. So use the opportunity to learn, use the opportunity to invest at the right time, and when you invest in cryptocurrency, invest when people are scared. You always make the money when you are the opposite of the crowd. Do what the 99% are not doing. If you follow the crowd too much, if you invest in the same thing, if the stock market is like this high, going up high, or the Bitcoin is very high already, you're probably a little bit late, unless you are the whole side. HODL, there's a whole people who basically buy and hold for the long-term investment. Fine. If you believe in the long-term prosperity of Bitcoin, some people say Bitcoin could go to $1 million. 1 million. At the moment, it's only 40,000 US dollar. They're about 38, maybe. It can go to 1 million. That's a lot of long-term opportunity. But if you cannot afford it, just be careful. Do not borrow money to invest and so on and so forth. So maybe I'll end my talk there. For any questions, I can also be reached on my Facebook page, Prin Panichapak. You saw my name here on the Zoom. You can go to my Facebook page. Please click like and share. I have a YouTube channel, Prin Check-in, PRINNCHECK. And space in Print Checking. You can go and subscribe there as well on my YouTube channel. I also have my line, which if you have question, you can ask through my line later on. My line ID is PRINPA, which is PRINNPA. Yeah, PRINNPA. 2N, by the way. So Papa, Roger, India, Double Nancy, Papa, Apple. So PRINNPA. You can add my line and say hello there as well. So every crisis comes the opportunity. Use the COVID-19, which speeds up the digital transformation, as an opportunity to study digital assets. Because in the future, government may be storing the national reserve in Bitcoin, not in gold. It could be national reserve in Bitcoin. You see the Central Bank of Thailand, Bank Chad, has already come out to announce the central bank digital currency projects a couple of days ago, that they are working with the Chinese government, with Hong Kong, HKMA, Hong Kong Monetary Authority, to bring about a digital Thai baht. This is a central bank digital currency, CBDC, which is a new form. It's similar to a normal baht that you're holding the coin, but it'll be in digital format, and it can be faster. It's more convenient. It will lower the cost of transaction. It will cut out the middleman, as I say. You can do a peer-to-peer lending. Blockchain, lastly, before I go, peer-to-peer opens up the opportunity for new competition in the banking world. Financial industry is one of the ancient industry that hasn't been reforming itself. It's slow to transform. Other industry has seen disruption. Look at the tourism industry, where hotel has been disrupted by Airbnb. You're seeing cars in the transportation industry that Uber or Grab has disrupted the taxi industry. You've seen the e-commerce platform like Alibaba, JD.com, Shopee, has disrupted the retailers world. So financial world, what is to disrupt the financial world? You need to peer-to-peer lending through the blockchain system. There is a new application that JMart is working on called the platform called Pa. Yes, Pa for Thai word, the acronym for a generous sugar daddy that's ditching out money for girls or whatever. Pa platform. This platform allows the people to bring about the peer-to-peer lending platform, brings about the group of people who has a lot of cash on one hand, but facing low interest rate, to a group of people who has a brilliant, great idea for businesses to start up a startup, but has no cash, no money. So bring the mesh together through the peer-to-peer system, cutting out the banks. And how do they analyze the credits quality? In the old days or today's world, if you go to a bank, they would demand you to ask for your bank account, for your bank statement, to see how much money you have in your bank account. They would look at your salary. They would look at your jobs, the work that you are doing. They would look at the assets that you have as collaterals, the property. But in the future, or in the digital world, they look at your character. They look at if you're trustworthy. They look at your social credit score. But in a digital format, this is interesting, because going back to the old world, when Thomas Edison, the godfather who founded the light bulbs, he was a scientist and an inventor who invented the light bulbs. When Thomas Edison was inventing light bulbs, he got the funding from JP Morgan, the big banker. JP Morgan lended the money to Thomas Edison because he trusted Thomas Edison. Thomas Edison was someone who has a credit in a society. He was a famous scientist, famous inventor. He has a address. He's honest. He's direct. So people trusted him. So JP Morgan lent money based on trust. Now, trust in today's digital world is based on your social credit score. Social credit score comes from tracking your spending on e-commerce, your social media lifestyle, the way you use your mobile phone, whether it's a prepay or postpay, do you call abroad, do you use domestically? A lot of this social footprint online, be careful what you say online. It will come back to haunt you in real life. Online life and the real life is merging. Real world is online world. So be careful what you do online. It becomes your social credit score. So when banks analyze your credit score, when peer-to-peer lending platform like PA that I mentioned, analyze your social credit score, they look at your online. China this day use this kind of online social credit score to see if they can give people passport or visa to travel abroad. Only 10% of Chinese get to travel at the moment. So the Chinese are also using these social tools to use the peer-to-peer lending. So remember, with every crisis comes the opportunity to disrupt the financial world. They call it the DeFi, decentralized financial. So you're going to see that decentralized trend playing out in your lifetime. And I urge you to learn, study fast, and more important than learn and study, get involved. As I say, invest prudently. Don't go to scam. Don't look at it of just playing or punting. Look at it as investing to learn, for you to have more interest in the digital currency and cryptocurrency. I wish you a good luck, and thank you for your attention, and I welcome any questions at the moment.
All right, that wraps up our first topic. Thank you, Mr. Fern, so much for the presentation. It has really helped us have more insights into the exciting world of cryptocurrency and for sharing your interesting background on it. At this point, I believe there might be some participants who are curious to know more about the story of you and cryptocurrency. As for the first question here, we have, can you tell a little bit more about your experience with someone who claimed to be Mr. Satoshi Nakamoto again?
That's like retelling the story. So basically, as I was mentioning earlier, it's the meeting in Napa Valley in the USA, in 2009. Remember, this is already many years ago. I was at that time being a regional manager in Credit Lyonnais CLSA, and I flew to have this meeting. As I mentioned, if you got to go and look at the replay, perhaps Satoshi was very confident that Bitcoin could be a new forms of financial transaction tools that can be used. It could be a digital gold, perhaps. It is definitely a new form of decentralized finance. And Satoshi looks like any of you here. He looks Asian. He looks Asian. He speaks very fluent English in an American accent, but he's an interesting guy. And some of the details of a Bitcoin that I got from that meeting is also in my YouTube channel. You can go and check it out. Print Check-in, PRINNCHECKIN, Print Check-in, a YouTube channel in the Bitcoin section where you can hear more about the Satoshi encounter. But it was eyes opening because everyone there was from the traditional financial world, from the old world of finance. And listening to this guy who was basically telling us that the old world of finance may be going out, meaning that in the future, we may not be just using a US dollar or a euro or a Japanese yen or a UK pounds or Thai baht as a means of payment or a transaction, or legal tender. It could be a new form of digital currency. And I'm saying, there's central bank digital currency coming in a Thai baht, and there are various other currencies that are coming up that could challenge the national sovereignty. And that's what the regulator are fearing, by the way. I have not enough time in this talk to tell you about the regulations of cryptocurrency, because that could determine the future of cryptocurrency. If the regulation is too tight, is too harsh, then you could ruin the innovation, you could ruin the creativeness of new financial products, new financial services like blockchain and Bitcoin that could offer for the future world. So Satoshi was, for me, was a rebel. And after that, there was many people who claimed to be Satoshi. So the reason why I say he claimed to be Satoshi Nakamoto was because I could not prove that he's Satoshi Nakamoto. But the fact that he claimed to be one in 2009 was quite incredible in itself, because nobody believed him in the room when he finished telling the story of Bitcoin. 0 people in the room, including myself. I didn't believe him. I thought he was a fraud. I thought he was a scammer. I thought he would just So nobody in the room believed him. But now, many years later, we now see where Bitcoin comes.
Right. Thank you, Kunprin. I think the participants can also visit Kunprin's YouTube channel if you're more curious about this topic. Due to time constraints, I think we will have one more question from the participants. And the next question will be on, it says, I believe cryptocurrency was conceptualized with the privacy in the end view, but the process behind crypto also provides a venue for money laundering on the law enforcer's perspective. How do we combat money launderers using crypto?
Exactly. The answer to this question you're going to hear from the next speaker, Alex, which he's an expert from UNODC, right? UN Office on Drugs and Crime. I understand. I've met Alex a few times, and he would definitely touch on this topic. But to cut the long story short, my short answer to that is that I believe that at the moment, many criminals are using cryptocurrency for potential gray market economy to transact. But let me tell you something. More criminals in the future, and even today, will be using cash. In fact, normal people like you and me, who are using more cash than crypto at the moment, in the future, we will be using more digital currency, cryptocurrency, than cash. And we're not fraudster, we're not scammer. So it's going to be a reverse world. At the moment, maybe more scammers are kind of like, and more people who are frauds can be trying to use cryptocurrency because most people like us, normal people like us, using cash more. But in the future, normal people like us who are not fraudster, are not scammer. I hope you're not scammer. you're not fraud. You'll be using digital asset, digital currency. It's going to be a reverse. In fact, cash is still the form that is still so easy not to track. Try to track Bitcoin. You may think with privacy in mind, yes, but if regulators come in, like CBDC, like central bank digital currency, it will be a centralized form of digital currency. There will be future where digital currency can be centralized and decentralized. So yes, while Bitcoin is still decentralized and hard to track, there are other centralized forms, XRP, Ripple. That was a centralized form of a digital assets that was also popular at one point. There'll be other form of stable coins and perhaps central bank digital currency that you will see a central government or establishment who could control the digital currency format as well. So you have to differentiate between a centralized form and a decentralized form when you talk about digital currency and the future of finance. But if they're a bad guy with bad intentions, there can always be a fraud, whether it's in cash, and cash is easier to destroy. It's easier to probably kind of hide and track and trace, than digital assets in the future. With from digital trail you can track.
All right. I think that answers the question. Thank you, Kunprin, so much for the answers. I believe we have one participant raise your hand. Would you like to ask the question? If so, you can turn on your microphone and ask the question.
Yes, yes, thank you. I have a question for Kunprin. In the sense that you mentioned Bitcoin, one principle of Bitcoin is making it to be like a digital gold. I guess that means limited supply, and so you just can't print money irresponsibly, something like this. But then I kind of see that as a benefit. But then you have so many other coins coming out. Then I don't know how limited supply will play in this for this principle, because so many coins. If there are only Bitcoins and then they control the supply, then okay. But then let's say Bitcoin is successful, then other coins, coin A, coin B, and coin C, and as you mentioned, there are several coins now. So how does this work for that principle as a digital gold, for example? Thank you.
Well, you see that's why I try to differentiate many coins into many different things that I mentioned earlier. I say there are different types of coins. There is coins that are for investment purposes, and there are coins that are for protocol. As you say correctly, there are thousands of cryptocurrencies in the world this day, and many of them are scams. There are some scams out there, right? And there are many scams who are NFT, non-fungible tokens. There are many scams in the farming projects. There are many scams perhaps in the different various coins. But the key is to differentiate, because different coins usually have different usage that I mentioned. Some coins could become legal tender for offer, could become a national, could become a currency like you can use for legal tender, that you can use to buy things on the street. But most coins are not like that, and most countries are not yet accepting cryptocurrency, right? So some coins are used in the closed ecosystem that they have for certain purposes, for utility purposes. Some coins are for investment, like Sansiri is doing, and various investment coin, like a shareholder will come out that the Security Exchange Commission is regulating. So you have to look at the purpose of that coin. What is this there for? What is doing? So Bitcoin, as I mentioned, it's like a protocol. It's like a digital gold. There is a limited, and sometimes there are forks. There are all kinds of stuff that you have to study on Bitcoin as well. And Ethereum, as I say, is a smart contracts, different use, different purposes. XRP, Ripple is for transaction, and so various different coin, or even Dogecoin. That the Chiba little dog that is funny. The purpose is like the people do it just for fun, for meme, for paying tips for programmers and whatever. So there are different coins have different purposes that you have to look at different coins on its own. But as I mentioned earlier, also be wary of scammers and people who look out there to really be just a fraud.
โอเคครับ thank you ครับคุณปรินครับ
ขอบคุณมากครับ For anyone, I know the time is very limited. I've left my contacts in the chat, so you can look at my contacts in the chat. If you have more questions, you can reach me on Facebook, online, or my YouTube channel on the chats I left there.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Prince, so much for the answers and the presentation. We very appreciate your time to provide us with this outstanding session. It was a very interesting topic, and due to time constraints, we may have to proceed to the next session. However, Kun Prin has sent Kun Prin's YouTube channel and Kun Prin's Line ID. So anyone, if you have got any further questions, feel free to contact Kun Prin from those platforms. Moving right along, it is now our pleasure to introduce our honorable speaker for the next topic, which will be on crimes in the cryptocurrency world. Everyone, please join me in welcoming Mr. Alexandru Kashilayu.
Hello.
Hello, Kun Alexandru. We can hear you clearly.
Hi. Well, thank you for the invite, and it's great to be here today. And I'm looking forward to sharing from our experience and to hear the questions from our participants. So should I just start?
Yes, please. Thank you. Mr. Alexandru, I think your connection might be a little bit laggy. Is there any screens you would like to send to us so we can assist you in sharing?
Yeah, I'm sharing now. Just 1 second. Sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, the connection is a bit bad, so I can't hear very well.
That's all right.
Can you see the presentation now?
It's loading. Yeah, now we can see your screen. We cannot clearly see the presentation. It's on the Zoom screen.
Okay, so you can see the presentation or the presentation mode slide? You can see the slides, right?
We can only see your face at this moment, I believe.
Oh, sorry. Let me try again. How about now? Can you see the
It's
slide?
loading. Yes, thank you.
Sorry, the connection is pretty. Yeah.
Yeah, we can now see your screen.
Okay, so okay, so you can see the slides, right?
Yes, we can see the slides.
Okay, cool. Well, much for having me here, and I think you've been going through a very interesting overview of cryptocurrencies, what they are, how they work. I assume that Kumprim has been covering that part, so I won't get much into that. What I will be talking about is maybe the dark side of the cryptocurrencies and the crime part. So I'll just quickly kind of sum up the definition of cryptocurrencies, right? So we call cryptocurrencies digital assets that are exchanged using cryptography. They use cryptography for two reasons, mainly to secure transactions and to control the creation of additional discussed, and Kumprim as Bitcoin was the first cryptocurrency out there, and one of the main characteristics of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies is that they are decentralized. So there is no central authority governing how they work, how they are issued, and so on. And one of the most important characteristics of cryptocurrencies is that they are anonymous. We have no way to know who is behind the transaction or the wallet or the address. At the same time, there is a blockchain. The blockchain is one of the most interesting characteristics. So this ledger allows us to actually be in public, check the ledger and check all the transactions and all the addresses. And because of that, we can trace transactions on the blockchain. So they're anonymous from the perspective who is behind it, but from the perspective of seeing transactions, they're a lot more open than, let's say, banking transactions. If you would want to check my bank, you have to get a warrant from a court and then go and serve that warrant to the bank that I'm banking with, and maybe I have it, but it's going to be very hard for you to understand what are the transactions carrying out with my bank account. But if you knew my Bitcoin address, anybody attending this webinar could just go check my Bitcoin address on the blockchain, and then you will have what transactions did I do and so on. So this Bitcoin important part of the Bitcoin ecosystem and of the cryptocurrencies ecosystem, and a lot of other cryptocurrencies, and they all have some sort of a blockchain. After Bitcoin came out, many cryptocurrencies emulated this model, and then they have sort of a blockchain. Some are more anonymous than others. And then for various purposes, including people that just want to be anonymous, that don't believe in the security in their own hands, they want to have their money to govern that. But also we have a lot of criminals that have seized opportunities and were quick to capitalize on the fact that cryptocurrencies are. So we have some that are more anonymous than the others. For example, blockchain, the Bitcoin blockchain, moment it's become more easy, let's say, law enforcement and governments have a better understanding how Bitcoin and how the Bitcoin blockchain works, and therefore trace transactions on the Bitcoin blockchain. So therefore, criminals can only be on the Bitcoin blockchain. But there are other cryptocurrencies that are more anonymous. We have here on the screen top 10 cryptocurrencies according to market capitalization. And Ethereum actually is one of the most important ones, because on the Ethereum blockchain, we have a lot of different applications that have been developed. Now we have Bitcoin has around 8, the second largest. Ethereum has close to billions. So in total, we have around $1 billion in all of the cryptocurrencies. So we can see that if we compare that to the global financial market, it's a huge amount, but it's growing, and it's growing in significance. One of the things that I wanted to just briefly mention, and I think maybe Kumprim can discuss more about that, and the other speakers, is decentralized finance, so DeFi. Interesting term, and what it means, I think it's it refers to a lot of different applications that use blockchain, primarily the Ethereum blockchain, but others as well, in a form of decentralized finance. So there is no central authority, there is not like a central bank or financial institutions that govern the way these finances are moved, but it's a decentralized system based on blockchain. Just applications that are, and you can see there's all type of dedicated apps like exchanges, liquidity. So the cryptocurrency ecosystem is growing, and we see more and more interest from financial people in general to invest in cryptocurrencies. But obviously, they have this pseudo-anonymous nature, have been a very, very interesting tools. So cryptocurrencies, ever since their inception, they have been used for crime, and now how are cryptocurrencies being used for crime? Well, the method of payment, we can think of a number of ways that we could use that as criminals, right? So major part of it is being used as a payment for ransom, but also as a payment for people being kidnapped and so on. We have products, illegal products, are being bought from the, and we have obviously terrorism financing and money laundering. So on the screen, one is looking at the total cryptocurrency. What does that mean? It means that the crypto analytic firm is able to and identify those that are illicit, illegal, right, or related to crime. Well, we can transactions on the block. But then, if we know that in in darknet market use, we can trace all the payments that are being made from this address or toward address, from this address to So then we are pinpoint that these payments are malicious and are related to. So therefore, we can see that from 2017 to 2020, a majority of crypto crime revolved around darknet markets, the orders, all types of scams. Other illegal services associated with cryptocurrencies, we see terrorism financing, child abuse material, terrorism, domestic extremism, and ransomware. We can see that as market-related funding has been remaining more or less steady, growing gradually. Has been growing significantly, especially 2019, 2020, and 2021. So shows us is that there is from ransomware. So here we have again crypto crimes by percentage increase cryptocurrency. So we can see that the funding received by criminals in cryptocurrencies based on crime type. So we can see that ransomware has been growing significantly. We have a 200% increase, almost 300% increase in ransomware-related crime. So that just goes to show that ransomware is becoming a major global threat in 2020 and 2021. So as I said, cryptocurrencies, because they are pseudo-anonymous, they're very hard to trace. They offer this great method of payment for criminals. They think that they can get away with it by using cryptocurrencies to funds anywhere in the world. And tracing these transactions is not an easy job. So we need to have a lot of skills and very expensive tools to be able to trace these transactions around. So top types of cryptocurrency related crimes, I would say that ransomware, scams, and darknet related crime, these are kind of the top three. And we've seen that as scams are decreasing a little bit more due to the pandemic, we've seen a slight decrease in the scam related to cryptocurrencies, ransomware rising steadily. So what is ransomware? Ransomware is just software that infects your computer, and whilst it will encrypt all your data. So then you would be locked out of your computer, all your data is encrypted, and then they would request for a ransom paid in currencies so that you gain back access to your data. We've seen that so cryptocurrencies have been facilitating this type of crime, but ransomware has existed a long time before cryptocurrencies. Previously, they would infect your computer and just lock you out. You wouldn't be able to log back in, and you would have to pay a ransom through some sort of service like MoneyGram or we've seen that also nowadays. So for the past 5, 6 ransom for people being kidnapped is also requested Bitcoin. One other area where, of course, cryptocurrencies are email compromise or CEO fraud. Here we have a type of fraud where criminals will conduct a very in-depth analysis in transactions, and they will identify a company that has dealings with other clients in large sums of money. So let's say it's a company paying for manufacturing different companies, and it's paying large sums. Criminals will do very in-depth investigation of this company, try to find out who is the one directing these payments, the chief financial officer or the CEO of the company or whatever. they will try to email account or fake the email account of this person and request from the finance to make a large transaction of money. And we're talking here about $10-20, so really large sums of money. And then they would request this transaction as claiming to be part of the company, and then request it as one of their normal payment clients, but just change the account to an offshore bank account. So these transactions, once they are done, they're very, very hard to trace. The criminals have a very intricate network of funnels, offshore accounts, and now obviously they started leveraging cryptocurrencies. They start turning these currencies where then it's a lot easier to lose their trace. So this is again a large area where cryptocurrency is being used for crime. Now, we have also technical crypto-related crime that was not did not exist before. Here we have cryptojacking. Now, cryptojacking means there's a few ways of committing this crime. Means that criminals will scan websites for vulnerabilities. So let's say the website, a newspaper, the website of a, I don't know, restaurant or a hotel, a restaurant that gets a high amount of traffic of visitors. They will scan this website for vulnerabilities, and then one encounter these vulnerabilities, they are able to leverage these vulnerabilities to install a third-party software website, basically mine cryptocurrencies for the duration that they are on the website. So let's say I log in, I own, let's say, I don't know, Bangkok Post website, and I want to read the news. So while I'm on the website, my computer is actually mining cryptocurrencies for these criminals. So what the illegal alteration of data. So it's on the website, but it's also using my computing power, my laptop, to mine cryptocurrencies. I'm not aware of the newspaper. The website is not aware of technical type of cybercrime that of cryptocurrencies, and it can be done with the website, or it can be done, we can see, with a honeypot access point. So let's say you log into the Wi-Fi in a hotel or in a cafe, and then while you are logged in Wi-Fi, you are actually mining cryptocurrencies. Sorry?
Mr. Alexandru,
Anybody wants
sorry
to say something, or
interrupt.
go on?
Sorry to interrupt, but I believe your connection might be a little bit unstable. Would you mind turning off your camera so it might be a little bit smoother? Thank you.
Fraud. So we're talking about scams. So once people started. Can you repeat, please? I don't know. The internet is the connection.
Yeah. Would you mind if we could like turn off your camera so the connection would be a little bit smoother? I believe there might be some delay in your connection. Okay, I think the ALSA team can turn off your camera. We apologize for this, but you can continue the presentation when you're ready. Thank you.
Could you repeat that, please? I can't hear it very well.
I believe there might be some delay in your connection. So would you mind if the ALSA team would like to turn off your camera so you can go on with the presentation a little bit smoother? Can you hear us?
Oh, okay. Now can you hear me?
Okay, Alexandru, if you can hear me, yeah. Yes, thank you. You can continue the presentation when you're ready. Thank you.
Should I go on?
Yes, thank you. Yes, please.
Okay, sure. So I'll turn off the camera. Is that okay?
That would be great. Thank you. You can continue the presentation and we can turn off your camera.
Yeah, you can still see the screen, the presentation, right?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay, sure. Yeah, so then I was talking now about the scams. So as you can see, there have been a lot of cryptocurrency related scams, and starting with ICOs, initial coin offerings. So a lot of people, they have this fear of losing out. So they want to jump onto something new to make some money, right? So they want to seize the opportunity. So because of that, there have been quite a large number of scams where some people have come out with these ideas, wrote a short white paper about this new coin that's going to be launched soon, and then you can come in and invest in it at the beginning when nobody knows about it, and then once it's launched, then the price will grow, and then you will make obviously a lot of money, right? So a lot of these has been pyramid or Ponzi schemes, and we've seen a lot of these around the world, but also specifically here in Southeast Asia, in Thailand, in Vietnam, and so on. So here is an example of that. We have Dragon Coin, where we have 5,000 Bitcoins were transferred into 7 wallets of the suspect. So then what usually happens is people invest, they send all this money, and then once they have a large sum of money, the perpetrator will just leave with the money. So then there's no investment. So there are a number of examples here. We have the Dragon Coin, and in Malaysia we have the Bit Kingdom, and so on. So many different Ponzi schemes that have came out leveraging cryptocurrency and people's need to invest and make a lot of money fast. Now, one of the most constant and biggest use for cryptocurrencies has been to pay for illegal items bought from the darknet. These are examples of weapons being sold on the darknet market, but you can find pretty much anything you can imagine on these darknet markets. Here we have a photo, a map from our recent study, Darknet Cybercrime Threats to Southeast Asia. That's a report that you can download. I will have the link for you towards the end of my presentation. So what we see here, it's a map showing items, photos, or IP, or phone numbers. So items that relate to darknet, they were posted on the darknet and came back to these countries. So we can see that throughout Southeast Asia, there is a significant use of darknets and criminal use of darknet. Now, what is the darknet? I believe most of you know what the darknet is. We already have now the by now infamous iceberg photo, where we have the ClearNet on top. ClearNet is that part of the internet that we can all easily reach once we go online, we go on a website, we go on social media, we search something through a search engine. That is the ClearNet. Everything that is not the ClearNet, it's the deep net or the deep web. So on the deep web, for example, we have this webinar. This webinar is hosted on the deep web because it's not just open to anybody to access, right? So you need to have the link, you need to have an access code. Therefore, this is part of the deep web. Your university's database, that's part of the deep web. Government databases and all type of access, websites where you need access, specific access, that's part of the deep web. What else is part of the deep web are darknets. What are the darknets? Darknets are specific overlay networks that require specific software and or configuration to access. So as part of the dark web, we have different darknets. So what's the difference between darknets and the dark web? Well, darknets are networks on the dark web, right? So in other words, the dark web is the entirety of all hosted content on darknets. We have different types of darknets, and Tor, the onion router, is the best known darknet. We have others. We have I2P, Freenet, Meganet, and so on. So there are different types of darknets out there. So UNODC has conducted a study to see what is the level of darknet-related criminality in Southeast Asia. And we've looked specifically at Tor because Tor is the largest and the most well-known dark. We have here on the left, we can see the largest darknet on the dark web, Tor, right? We see the traffic to Tor browser, and then we can see on the right side traffic to sites on the Tor network. So both of these sites, both of these charts show an increase in use of Tor and the use of the darknet on Tor. So that goes to show that there has been a significant increase in use of darknets in Southeast Asia by people and most probably by criminals. Now, what can we find on the darknet? We can find anything that you can imagine. What's the Tor basically means that you can set up a website on a Tor node, and that means that we, law enforcement and nobody can identify the IP address of that website. So because it's basically anonymous, you can host anonymous content and nobody can take it down. That's why we have a lot of bad stuff on the darknet. It's not all bad stuff on the darknet. There's also research. There's also freedom fighters, whistleblowers, and so on that take advantage of this anonymity. But a lot of the content is also illegal. And we can find weapons, we can find all types of drugs, we can find child abuse material, stolen accounts, stolen identities, and so on. So everything that you can imagine, you can find on the darknet. Now we have, and as part of the content of the darknet, a lot of it is being hosted on darknet markets. What is a darknet market? Well, it's basically a website that is set up just like an online store, just like Lazada or Shopee or Amazon, only that it contains illegal products, illegal services. It contains drugs, it contains weapons, child abuse material, ransomware, and cybercrime kits, even hitmen for hire. You can imagine whatever you can imagine, you can find on these darknet markets. Here we have a graph showing how the number of darknet markets has been growing from 2013, 2015, reaching kind of a peak 2017, and then slightly decreasing, but then still remaining constant 2018, 2019, 2020. So that goes to show that while law enforcement can conduct operations and sometimes be successful in taking these markets down, and I think one of the good examples in this area is the Alpha Bay market that was the biggest darknet market of its time in 2017. And the administrator of this market was identified and arrested here in Thailand. So he was living in Thailand while administrating this drug market, basically. So how darknet markets work is the administrator of the market offers the environment, the market, right? So this is all they do. They provide the service. Then we have vendors. People log in and create a vendor account, and then they set up a shop, basically. They present their products. They sell cocaine, marijuana, whatever type of drug, and they post their products with the price. Then people log in as buyers and they start buying. What is essentially here is that they are paying through cryptocurrencies, and then the market offers a rating, a system of rating and feedback, so that vendors get a rating, right? We can imagine nobody knows each other in there. You log in with an anonymous account, you don't know who's that person selling or buying. So you need to trust them to send your Bitcoins. So you are sending the Bitcoins. Once you buy a product, what you're doing is you are paying to the market. The market then holds these cryptocurrencies in escrow until you confirm you receive your product. And then you confirm you received your product, it's good quality, you provide a review to the vendor, and then the vendor gets the money. So this is how darknet markets work. At any given time, a darknet market will have millions of dollars in cryptocurrencies that they're holding in escrow for their the participants. And at some point, you can imagine these are all illegal things happening there. They can just leave with all the money, and this is what is called an exit scheme. So the darknet market closes shop and takes the money of all the buyers and the sellers. And these things have been happening before. So this is one of the risks of doing business on the darknet market. Now, what percentage of illegal products we can find on the darknet? We can see from this chart that a large majority of illegal stuff on the darknet is drugs. Then we have some other services such as digital products, which include games, pirated software, associated license keys, fraudulent items such as payment card information, counterfeit items including counterfeit money, counterfeit passports, IDs, and so on. What type of illicit services we can find? Where we can find all types of crime as a service. So here we have criminals that know how to do cybercrime. They know how to code malware, how to code ransomware. So they have designed these packages, and then you can just log in there and buy ransomware as a service. They will run the service for you, and for a small fee, you will be able to infect other people and get ransom paid to you. But obviously, you will pay a fee to this service. This is the crime as a service model. Then there's also all types of darknet forums where you can discuss, on topics on drugs, how to sell drugs online, how to start a ransomware strain, and so on. And of course, child abuse, online child sexual abuse material. So obviously, all types of pedophiles can't operate a child abuse material on the clear net, so then they have to resort to the darknet for that. Now, conducting this study and trying to identify the use of darknet from Southeast Asia, it's not an easy thing to do. We have to basically crawl the darknet and identify the darknet markets, the darknet websites, and go on there and try to see who is from Southeast Asia or who is talking about Southeast Asia. Well, one indicator of that is the language. So if you find a darknet market that is entirely in Thai, that's a pretty good indicator that, hey, these are Thai people buying, selling drugs, illegal stuff in and from Thailand. If it's in Vietnamese or in Filipino or whatever other Southeast Asian language, that's a pretty good indicator. But actually, not a lot of content is in local languages. A lot of the darknet market, the big darknet markets that have a lot of good vendors and a lot of sellers and buyers are international. They are English speaking. So then we go on those ones and try to see if people are talking about buying something from Thailand or selling something to the Philippines or from Singapore to Vietnam or whatever. So people will say, okay, I am providing, I'm selling yaba or all types of drugs, and they say delivering from Thailand to anywhere in the world or from Asia to Asia. Why do they specify that? Well, because these things are being bought from the darknet, but they are being shipped through the real world. So they are being packaged and then shipped through mail and through couriers. So then as a buyer, you need to have a good understanding, hey, if I'm buying something that is being shipped from the US, then I have a fair amount of chances that it's going to be intercepted throughout so many borders in customs. But if I'm buying something from Thailand and I'm in Thailand, then I have bigger chances of it just being shipped through the mail and no problem in even anybody intercepting it. So it's a good indicator for business, so that these sellers, these vendors mention where they are shipping to where. Maybe they are shipping weapons, and again, if they're shipping weapons from the US to the US, they have smaller chances of anything happening than if they're shipping from the US to a country that has a lot more restrictive gun laws, like, I don't know, maybe Singapore. So these are indicators that we've used to understand if there is darknet-related criminality in Southeast Asia. We can see on this chart that languages, Southeast Asian languages, are present on the darknet. They were more present 2017, and then this has been going down. The fact that the language presence of national languages of Southeast Asia is decreasing is not an indicator that there's less criminals out there. Maybe an indicator that they are getting smarter, because on an international market, like a big darknet market, moderators will look out for people speaking specific language, and they will let them know, hey, if you talk in Thai, law enforcement could be operating here. They may know that you are Thai, so then you should just speak English. So then this is maybe an indicator that people are just getting smarter, not speaking their own language. This is an example of Vietnamese darknet forum, so it's in Vietnamese. These are some of the indicators that we've used to pinpoint location for darknet related services. We have phone numbers, we have national ID numbers, market items with country mentioned, as I said, shipping from or to, IP addresses, and so on. So these are some of the indicators that we've used. Now, how did the pandemic influence crime on the darknet and crypto-related crime? Well, we've seen that a large numbers of criminals were going on the darknet and trying to get into cybercrime. They were stuck at home. They had to adjust and re-specialize in something else. So they were going on the darknet asking, hey, how can I make money from the darknet? A lot of fake vaccines, a lot of fake cures for COVID-19, a lot of misinformation and disinformation related to COVID and so on was present. So this was part of our UNODC Darknet Cybercrime Threats to Southeast Asia. You have the link here. I would encourage you to take it and download the report and read more about that. Now, coming back to cyber cryptocurrency crime, we've seen threat and extortion being used. For example, we have websites that are their data is being taken, copied, and then posted on the darknet. So we have criminals that look up to that data and try to extort money from people that were present on various websites. We have all types of online gambling sites that are set up using cryptocurrencies to launder their proceeds. Then we have terrorism financing. We see here people, ISIS supporters are holding up a website, a banner with Bitcoin address. There have been many instances of terrorism financing around the world. Here we have on the left an ad saying that, you know, for during the Ramadan period, they are raising funds to feed people that are fasting. But this is actually a front for an operation that is financing terrorist activities. And again, by using cryptanalytic software tools, we are able to check that address and see that it's receiving funding, and then eventually it's sending it to a known supporter of terrorism. Then exchange is getting hacked. All these cryptocurrencies are being exchanged to fiat currency, to US dollars, Thai baht, Filipino pesos, and or whatever. So they are exchanged in one of these crypto exchanges. So these crypto exchanges are holding large amounts of cryptocurrencies at any given time. So we have we've seen that there is a strong focus on hacking these exchanges and getting like really hundreds of millions of dollars out of them. Exit scams, as we were discussing initially, DeFi. We have more and more services classified as decentralized finance, and some of these are getting a lot of funding in, and then they're going out, basically pulling the plug and leaving with all the people's money. So we see more and more of that. Now also DeFi scams, as we had more in 2017, 2018, 2019, we were seeing more exchanges being hacked. Now we see this trend focusing more on DeFi, as there are a lot of different services out there, and their cybersecurity is not as tight as it is with banks and as it's becoming now with crypto exchanges. So obviously we see that criminals are just focusing on where is the easiest gain and focusing on that. Now, of course, all these crypto-related crime is focusing primarily on gain, getting money out, right? So what they need to do is transform these funds from cryptocurrencies into fiat currency, into US dollars, euros, Thai baht, whatever. So how do they do that? First, they have to launder the money. They have to send it from different address to different address, try to lose their trace. That's not an easy thing to do. We have here a share of all illicit funds going to the top 5 illicit fund receiving services by crime type. What does this mean? It means that with crypto analytics, we are able to identify that it's actually a small number of services that are providing this crypto laundering service. So we can trace that a lot of the funds that are illicit are going to these top 5 money laundering, basically crypto laundering services. And here we can see that the top 5 per crime type. We see ransomware, stolen funds, darknet market, and scams. We can see that ransomware is increasing every year steadily. How do you launder cryptocurrencies? You send them to a service that is so-called Bitcoin mixer or Bitcoin tumbler. What does this do is tries to sever basically the tie between your address and the laundered Bitcoins. So let's say you are involved in ransomware. You have a ransom address that you post on the ransom node, so everybody knows that that's the address of the ransomware. They are sending you Bitcoins. With crypto analytics, I can take that Bitcoin address and look it up on the blockchain. And I can see that you're receiving a lot of money, and then you will start to try and lose your trace. You will start to send all that money, all that crypto into various crypto addresses, but still I can kind of trace that. So then what you need is you need to send it in a service that receives many different transactions from different services, and then mix it all together and then sends it back out on the other end. So then at that point, what the service, the mixing service is doing is trying to cut the ties between the dirty money and then giving you back in different transactions, different amounts, laundered Bitcoins. So this is one way of laundering Bitcoins that is harder to identify for law enforcement. Again, I was talking about child abuse material, and we can see that also cryptocurrencies are being used to pay for that on the darknet. Now, what is this thing? This thing is what you would get on your screen if you get infected with the Locky ransomware. If you see this thing, it's not a good thing. What it means is that basically all your data is encrypted and you can't access your your computer or your data. So this, if it's your personal data, is going to be pretty annoying. You have an option of paying ransom or resuming back from a backup if you have that backup. If you don't have a backup, it's going to be pretty tough. But if you're a company or if you're a hospital, then what it means is that actually you have people that may die within the next hours because they can't get their surgeries, they can't get their medication. So ransomware is one of the biggest and growing threats of cryptocurrency related crime. This is what you would have to do. You'd have to go on a darknet website and pay the ransom, basically. So we have some ransomware statistics here. We can see that the average ransom payment has been growing steadily since 2014, from $200 to $300 to around $1,000 per payment in 2016. Now, in 2021, the average ransom payment by mid-sized organization was $170,000 US. So you can imagine, sorry, since the price is going up so severely, what this means is that it's a very lucrative business. So criminals more and more are getting into ransomware because it works. We see that in 2021, the largest ransomware paid was made by an insurance company and paying $40 million. So that's a huge amount to pay to get back access to your data. So experts estimate that a ransomware attack will occur every 11 seconds in 2021. 80% of victims who submit a ransomware payment experienced another attack soon after, and 46% got access to their data, but most of it was corrupted. And we see that the global ransomware damage costs predicted to reach around $20 billion US by 2021. So these are staggering numbers here. We're talking about huge amount of damage that ransomware is causing. And so ransomware has evolved from being kind of a indiscriminate infection. It will just send out emails with phishing and then infecting whoever clicks, right? Now we see ransomware specializing on whaling. We can call it whaling, like big whale, big fish hunting. They are looking at targeting small and medium enterprises or big companies where they know that they have huge amounts to gain, and then requesting like millions of dollars to get the ransom. We have here the total estimated cost of ransomware to organizations worldwide, which is growing steadily and close to reaching $20 billion. Now we have some numbers per organization. So we see that organizations that are reporting revenue loss by industry, and we see here the ones that are the most affected: government, financial services, healthcare, automotive industry, and retail. Specifically, the healthcare industry has been hit very, very hard, and that's especially heinous because cyber criminals, it seems that while they're out for profit, they couldn't care less about human lives, which is it's a very dramatic thing to see. So ransomware attacks caused almost 50% of healthcare breaches in 2020, and yes.
I think maybe someone like unmuted their mic on accident. You can continue the presentation,
Okay.
Alexander.
So we see that attacks on healthcare cost more than any other industry at $408 per instance. And in 2020, we have 560 healthcare facilities that were affected by ransomware attacks in 80 separate incidents. And we've had in Southeast Asia as well, throughout Southeast Asia as well, we've had several damaging attacks on healthcare, including a ransomware attack on hospitals in Thailand in September 2020, and so on. Education. we see that ransomware attacks against universities have increased by 100% between 2019 and 2020. We have the average cost of ransomware attack in higher education in 2020 was 447,000 US dollars. And we see that at least 1.6 thousand schools, colleges, and universities were impacted in around 84 separate incidents around the world. So in recent incidents affecting the education sector, ransomware has led to the loss of student coursework, school financial records, as well as data relating to COVID-19 testing and so on. In finance and insurance, we have experienced a 520% increase in phishing and ransomware attacks between March and June 2020. Le Chiffre ransomware hit 3 Indian banks and caused millions of US dollars in damages. Then we have government, and with government, we've seen many different local governments being hit by ransomware. In 2020, 33% of attacks on governmental bodies were ransomware. The North Miami Beach Police Department was hit with a ransomware attack and was being told to pay millions to regain access to their information. So you can imagine if as a police station, you are not able to have access to your records, or if somebody gain access to their records and they're able to sell it online. This is what it's called as double ransom. They ask you for a ransom to get back your data, but then they ask again for ransom so that they don't post that data out there on the darknet and make it public. And increasingly, we see ransomware becoming a national security threat. Lately, we have some very notorious ransomware attacks that were delivered by various actors, some of the attacks being considered to affect the national security of some states. Here we have a list of the most affected ransomware, the most affected countries by ransomware. And while the US is largely the most affected, we have Australia, Japan, and other countries in the region as well being big targets. These are some of the more known, more famous crypto ransomware attacks in 2021. We have airplane manufacturer Bombardier attacked by the Clop ransomware strain. We have computer giant Acer attacked by Revil, requesting 50 million US dollars. We have the Washington, D.C. Police Department attacked by the Babuk gang. And of course, you may know the oil pipeline operator Colonial Pipeline attacked by DarkSide. So these are just some high-profile cases out there, but there have been many, many different others. So primarily ransom is distributed through the email. Why is that? Well, because majority of communication happens through email. So a lot of times a ransomware attack would start as a phishing email with an attachment or a link that you would click. We have here social engineering flow of the ransomware, Lucky ransomware. As we see here on the chart, there are several opportunities to stop the malicious encryption of your data. We have a spam filter that has to be in place that is failing. We have a user that should not be opening a malicious file. We have an antivirus that is failing. So you should have spam filter, antivirus, firewall, and you have some sort of training and awareness around that, you should be able to not fall victim to a ransomware attack. Now, another thing that is really growing is ransomware as a service. And here we have criminal gangs offering to infect others and to use this ransom as a service for other criminals. So let's say you want to make some money with cybercrime, you just get into the darknet, look up ransomware as a service, find a gang that will offer this service for you, and you can just go infect companies and make money without really knowing how to design a ransom, how to code a ransom malware. So we've seen an overview of crypto-related crime. We see that the major crime related activities are related to darknet markets, to ransomware, to scams, and to money laundering. These are the major ones, but we've seen some other ones as well. What it comes down to in crypto-related crime, it comes down to legislation. We are able to track transactions on the blockchain. So we're able to identify to a certain degree where the funds are going and when they are exchanged in an exchange, a crypto exchange. What we need is to have regulation so that we can require that crypto exchange to give us law enforcement, government data about who is behind those transactions. That is, in banking, is known as know your customer, and banking has very strict rules around money laundering and countering terrorism financing. The crypto exchanges are a newer business, and we're still working with countries around the region and around the world to come up with regulations in this field. So this brings me to our organization, UNODC, United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime. What we do, and this is a picture of our headquarters in Vienna, but we have regional offices throughout the world, and I'm part of the regional office for Southeast Asia and the Pacific here in Bangkok. So we work with countries around the world to help them strengthen their capacity to address crime and criminal justice matters. So these are the work that we're doing in cryptocurrency. We have darknet and cryptocurrency support. We're providing training. We're providing working. We have set up a working group where we are getting together law enforcement, regulators, to discuss about these issues, to talk about the latest crimes, how they are evolving. We are training law enforcement on how to investigate and how to trace the transactions of the blockchain, providing that equipment, that knowledge, but also working with regulators, setting up a working group to come up with proper legislation in this field. We have conducting research. You have our report there. I've shared the link with you, and I'd encourage you to check it out. But we're also conducting at the moment a review of legislation in Southeast Asia on cryptocurrencies. So we hope to share this report with our member countries soon. So this has been my insight into the dark side of cryptocurrencies. I hope you found it interesting, and I hope the internet connection was good enough so that you could hear me well, because I seem to have some issues with the connection. So happy to hear any questions you may have.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Alexandru, for the insightful information. I hope everyone enjoyed the presentation. And Mr. Alexandru, I believe some participants would like to access the link you showed earlier in the presentation. Would you mind showing us the link again, or you can also send the link in the chat box so the participants can also access the link. And I think due to time constraints, we apologize that we may not be able to answer all the questions, but if you have any further questions, Mr. Alexandru, would you be able to provide us with maybe your contacts so the participants can further ask questions? So,
Sure. Yeah. Let me just show you the link again. 1 second.
And for the time being, I will read the first question, which is, in the blockchain, we can see transactions, but we cannot identify the peers involved in the said transaction. How can we combat this, especially those transactions involving money laundering, OSCAC, and terrorism financing case? OSCAC stands for Online Sexual Exploitation and Abuse of Children. Mr. Alexandru.
Yeah, just 1 second. I'm trying to come back to the link.
It's all right. If any participants have any further questions, feel free to contact Mr. Alexandru through the contact that will be given. Maybe Mr. Alexandru can provide your social media later after the Q&A session.
Yeah, sure. I mean, you can just look me up on LinkedIn. You can find me on Twitter, and these are my contact details right here. I'm gonna pass them in there on the chat, and then happy
All right.
to
I
talk to you
believe
guys. Sure.
you have a link through the chat box, and I think the participants. All right, that will be your context, but I believe you may be able to answer the first question that we have asked earlier.
Yeah, sorry. Can you repeat the question? Which one is it? It's
Sure. The first one, in the blockchain, we can see the transactions, but we cannot identify the peers involved in the state transaction. How can we combat this, especially those transactions involving money laundering, OSEAC, and terrorism financing cases? OSEAC stands for Online Sexual Exploitation and Abuse of Children. Or you can also
yeah.
see the question in the chat box.
Yeah, sure. Well, as I mentioned, yeah, we don't know who is behind those transactions, right? So what we need to do as law enforcement is we need to be able to trace those transactions until an entry or exit point, right? What is an entry or exit point? Usually is a crypto exchange. So we know for sure that this money involved in money laundering, this crypto involved in money laundering or child exploitation has been sent to a crypto exchange, and then those guys want to exchange those crypto to US dollars. So what we need to know now is go to that exchange and request them for details about the people behind that transaction. So this is normally how it happens. So what it requires that we have legislation around the world wherever these exchanges are operating, that we can request them for this data. So this is part of the work that I'm doing with governments, is to get them to come up and enact legislation in this field so that we can ask them who is behind those transactions. And around the world, we have more and more countries that are implementing such legislation.
All right.
So it's becoming better, yeah.
Yeah, okay. I think that answers the question. Thank you, Mr. Alexandru, for the wonderful presentation. And it has been such a pleasure to have you here providing this amazing presentation. We apologize for any inconvenience that may have occurred. And if any participant would like to ask further questions, feel free to contact Mr. Alexandru in the contacts provided in the chat box. And we'll now proceed to the break session, which will be 5 minutes, and we'll see each other again at around 11:12. So if anyone is interested in asking questions, again, feel free to contact Mr. Alexandru with the contacts that we have provided in the chat box. And for now, we will have a 5-minute break. If anyone is interested in getting to know more about ALSA Thailand, you can access our booklet, which will be provided also in the chat box. There will also be a QR code on the slide, which you can also scan as well. We'll now have a break for 5 minutes, but please stay in this meet, but not or your microphones if you have to. After the break, there will also be another presentation and a Kahoot session, which certificates will be given out to the first 3 places with the best performance during the session. Feel free to go grab something if you need to, and we will see each other again at 11:12. All right. Hope everyone is now back and is now fresh ready for the next presentation. Once again, let me remind you that if you have any questions during the presentation, please type into the chat box. And without further ado, please join me in welcoming our next speaker for the safety, risk, and trends of cryptocurrency, Mr. Viewer.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, ALSA Thailand, once again for your invitation. And today it's my pleasure to be here and also to join this interesting workshop. So first of all, let me share my screen. And if you cannot hear my voice or if you cannot see my screen, just let me know through the chat box, okay?
Yes, please, but we can hear you for now. You can share your screen, please. Yes, we can see the screen right now.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you. All right, you can begin whenever you're ready. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so first of all, let me introduce myself in brief. As you may notice from this one page of my presentation, I'm a lecturer in law at the Faculty of Law, Thammasat University. I have been working for the Faculty of Law, Thammasat University for several years already. I'm also a research affiliate at the Cambridge Center for Alternative Finance, University of Cambridge. I started working for the Cambridge Center for Alternative Finance, or CCAF, since 2015. That is the reason why that I had an opportunity to deal with fintech laws and regulations research. I have co-authored and led a research project, a number of research projects with the Cambridge Center for Alternative Finance. And I suggest you to search this, to use this, the center name as a keyword, and also search for the center publication as well. Because I think we also produce a number of publications in the past many years, and I hope that it might be helpful for all of you. And today, from the topic of today's workshop, I'm going to spend around an hour to discuss with you on relevant issues from legal and regulatory perspective of crypto assets and cryptocurrency. Then let's start from the session outline. So I'm going to talk about Thai laws and regulations before legal and regulatory implications in general. I would like to emphasize here that Thai regulatory framework is the main focus of my lecture today. And also at request from our organizer, I'm going to address other relevant issues as well, such as the regulatory sandbox initiative, how the COVID-19 affects the cryptocurrency market, and also trends in legal career paths. I would like to begin with this page. And you can see that this is the publication produced by the Bank of Thailand. Why I want to begin with this page? Because it allows me to elaborate what is going on in Thailand. Internal project is the project that was initiated by the Bank of Thailand with the goal to assess potentials and applications of distributed ledger technology. Distributed ledger technology also can be used interchangeably with the term blockchain technology. And I hope that you already learned a lot from our first and second speaker about the introduction of cryptocurrency. This project, internal project, marks as an important milestone in our efforts to drive forward technological development for the Thai financial sector. It should be highlighted that the central bank cryptocurrency, or CBDC, is also a part of this project as well. Some of you may see from the news that just yesterday or the day before yesterday, the Bank of Thailand planned to launch our retail CBDC next year. And actually, to this, you also need to be able to differentiate between the retail and also the wholesale CBDC. But due to the time constraint, I may not be able to dig deeper in details, but I hope that this CBDC, it also should be the one that maybe you guys will see in the near future, because many countries, central bank in many countries try to develop their CBDC. Okay, let's move to the next one. This shows the transformation of the capital market by the Stock Exchange of Thailand, or Thai SET. The business model of the digital asset platform is going to change significantly compared to the existing stock exchange platform. Instead of SET being the center of all activity, as you may notice from the left-hand side one, the members and partners are going to be a part of each activity on the platform. So this Thai SET will launch their digital asset platform later this year. The imminent service will broaden fundraising and investment opportunities in our country. So this is the reason why that I would like to reflect. It's not just only the change in private sector, but actually our regulators or public authorities have been working for implementing this kind of technology with their services as well. So from the internal project to the Thai SET digital asset platform, I think this initiative could reflect something. This initiative could reflect what is going on in Thailand. And I would say that our regulators are quite receptive and open-minded to new technologies and innovation. However, it is still very challenging for them to respond to these fast-changing technologies or environment. Then moving on to the background information in Thailand. This is to understand why we need to regulate digital assets. You can see from this page. Before 2018, digital assets have been used as fundraising instrument and medium of exchange in Thailand, without laws and regulations to regulate such activities. This led to concern from Thai government authorities and key regulators about potential impact of the activities on national financial stability, as well as the public risk as well. So this can reflect something, right? This can reflect that from the legal and regulatory implication, if we want to design such policies, we want to design laws and regulations to respond to these digital assets. It is very challenging because firstly, we should understand the categorization of digital assets, right? We should understand how they are structured, and as well as we should understand all technical elements of such token or asset, right? So you can see from the left-hand side of this page, this is the white paper of the JFinCoin ICO project, launched in Thailand at the beginning of 2018 to summarize more than 88 million tokens sold on the first day. Despite the lack of regulatory framework and high investment risk, in particular, around 80% of 100 million digital tokens were sold at a price of 6 baht. This project led to concern from government and relevant stakeholders in our country. This is also the reason why Thai authorities issue new regulations on digital asset businesses in the following months. Now you can see from the left-hand side of this page. This page shows the stances of the Bank of Thailand on Bitcoin cryptocurrency transaction. This timeline is before the implementation of the digital asset business regulations in our country. From 2013, the Bank of Thailand took cautious stances on Bitcoin cryptocurrency and its transaction. What I would like to emphasize here is in 2018. You can see that in 2018, the Bank of Thailand firstly asked financial institutions not to get involved in cryptocurrency transactions. However, the Bank of Thailand canceled this notification. What is the reason? This is because the Thai SEC issued the emergency decree on digital asset businesses to regulate digital asset related activities and businesses in early 2018. This is a big change in Thailand in terms of digital asset law and regulation that I will describe in detail later on. And before we go further for the detailed regulation in Thailand, I would like to begin with this diagram or this picture. I created this picture aimed at explaining why we need to find basically we need to find the best regulatory balance, and we need to understand regulatory problems, including outdated laws and regulations. Besides, apart from the regulation to monitor the compliance, to enforce the rule effectively, could be even harder to monitor the compliance. You can see from the on the right-hand side for the supervision. To monitor the compliance and to enforce the rule effectively could be even harder than to find the best regulatory practice, I would say. This is the reason why I put regulations and supervision together here in this page, as it is important for you to consider both elements for regulatory policy design. There are three main regulatory issues concerning digital assets. The first one is the legal status of digital assets that connect to the second point, which is the type of digital asset business. Lastly, there are other issues as well, such as the legal link between ownership right over asset and digital token. I will explain this in details after finish the legal and regulatory perspective in Thailand part, okay? How regulators or policymakers have responded to these issues? I would say that there are different approaches being used in different countries. It could be the use of existing retrofitted bespoke laws and regulations, and the use of innovative regulatory tools, such as the so-called regulatory sandbox initiative. However, not all approaches are applicable in developing markets or country like our country like Thailand due to many reasons. I will also address this in the later part of my presentation as well. Then let's begin from the Thai law and regulations. First of all, there are a number of regulations that we should take into account when considering the legal status of digital assets and the legality of relevant activities and businesses in Thailand. However, due to the time constraint, I will focus on the last one, the emergency decree on digital asset business, 2018, okay? So from this page, I would like to begin from the Currency Act, of Thailand. And you can see from Section 6 and Section 7 of the Act. What does this mean? The currency shall consist of coins and notes. The unit of currency is Thai baht, 1 baht being divided into 100 satang. The word baht may be designated by the abbreviation B. The Act limited the definition of currency under Thai legal system to two forms, comprising coins and notes, right? So this means that digital assets, including cryptocurrency, definitely cannot be considered as a currency under the Currency Act of Thailand. This is because the currency specified in the Act, again, does not include digital form of the currency, right? So let's imagine if the Bank of Thailand want to develop their retail CBDC. For example, the Bank of Thailand will launch our retail CBDC next year, let's say. If the Bank of Thailand want to ascertain the legal status of their retail CBDC as a currency, In this sense, the Bank of Thailand maybe need to consider amending the Currency Act, right? This also means that not only like cryptocurrency like Bitcoin, but also digital tokens and also the government developed CBDC cannot be considered as a currency under the existing law. Okay. So what about electronic money? Whether digital asset or cryptocurrency can be regarded as an electronic money under the Payment System Act 2017. You can see Section 3. Electronic money means any electronic card issued by a business provider to a service user, whether or not the name is specified thereon, whereby payment has been made to the business provider in advance for payment of goods, services, or other payments, blah, 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 right? So unlike virtual currency, which is based on DLT, distributed ledger technology, or blockchain technology, e-money can be centralized or decentralized depending on the objective of the controller of the supply of such electronic tender, right? So what does this mean again? Digital assets, including cryptocurrency, are also not fall within the scope of electronic money under the Payment System Act of Thailand. Right? So we cannot consider it as a currency, also as an electronic money as well. So what about securities? I hope that you already understand that in brief, for the structure of this digital asset or crypto asset. Actually, I prefer to use the term crypto asset because for me personally, I think the term digital asset is too broad. It covers like all types of assets online that how can I say in the digital representation or like the in-game items as well. But for crypto asset and digital tokens, let's say, from the structure of these digital assets, sometimes it also can be like a security, right? So this is the reason why that a number of countries, this is also the reason why a number of countries in this world try to implement their security laws with the case, right? Wait me a moment, I have a call and wait me for a minute, okay?
All right. I believe for this time, maybe we can show you the ALSA booklet before Kun Bin comes back. Kun Boi comes back. Yes. So if anyone is interested to know more about ALSA Thailand, ALSA stands for Asian Law Students Association, and we have also provided you with the booklet and the QR code that were shown during the break. And you can also scan the QR code right here to see the ALSA booklet, which we have written to present more about ALSA Thailand. And maybe we could also show you at this time.
Hello?
With that, oh, okay, right. Okay, I think Kun Bawi is back. You can now continue the presentation. Thank you.
Okay, sure. So from this page, you can see the Security and Exchange Act of Thailand also specify in Section 4 that securities means the treasury bills, bonds, bills, shares, debenture, and so on. So I summarize here that due to the definition of securities specified under the Act, digital assets such as virtual currency and stable coins as well do not fall within the scope of any type of security stipulated here, right? So let's move to the emergency decree on digital asset businesses 2018. Then, as I have mentioned before, I would like to focus on this law, and these are the reasons. The reasons to issue these laws in 2018. This is that what I highlight here with the yellow color here to ensure the effectiveness of the supervision and monitoring of the activities and businesses relating to digital assets and the transparency of such activity and business. So the main reasons why the Thai SEC need to issue the emergency decree on digital asset businesses actually is to prevent any potential risk that might be happened from these digital asset businesses or activities, right? When we look deeper in details, you also can see that section 3 and also together with other section of the emergency decree. From the section 3, cryptocurrency means an electronic data, right? And blah, blah, more further explanation. And also section 3 of the emergency decree further define the term digital token and digital asset as well. So from this, I would like to summarize here that in Thailand, we use the term digital asset, right? So it might be different from other publications or other reports in let's say other countries or that produced by the center that I have been working for, that like the CCAF as well, because actually digital asset is quite a broad term, right? But you also should look it together with the definition that's specified here, right? In section 3 of the emergency decree, that digital asset here in this context means the cryptocurrency and digital token, right? So what does this mean? This means that digital asset here stipulated here in the emergency decree is not like too broad to cover all type of digital assets. Okay. So apart from the legal status of digital assets, I would like to move forward to the laws and regulations to regulate related businesses or participants. So with our specific law and regulations, let's say before 2018, digital asset businesses in Thailand may not be required to get any specific operational license from Thai SEC. However, they need to comply with general regulations, such as the Business Registration Act and the regulations of the Ministry of Commerce that you can see from this page. In brief, to apply for e-commerce registration. According to existing regulations, for example, the Financial Institution Business Act 2008, digital asset businesses are not a kind of financial institution business under the Financial Institution Business Act as well. You can see from section 4, right? The financial institution business means the commercial bank, banking business, finance business, and credit function business, and shall include the undertaking of businesses of a specialized financial institution. Section 4 further supplement that commercial banking business means the undertaking of business of accepting deposits of money or accepting money from the public, blah, blah, blah. I just want to reflect that digital asset businesses are not fall within the scope of commercial banking businesses under the existing legislation. This is also the reason why that we need bespoke regulations to regulate such businesses, right? What about the Payment System Act? So from the Payment System Act 2017, you can see section 16. They also try to describe the notification regarding the payment services as the designated payment services that shall apply for a license from respective authority here. Digital asset business are not are also not the type of businesses specified in the payment system. Okay. So let's move to the emergency degree on digital asset business. So this is the law that we should consider if we want to operate any kind of digital asset business. And from section 3, you can see that digital asset business means of any of the following businesses, from digital asset exchange, broker, dealer, and also other businesses as well. The Thai SEC recently amended the law to expand the scope of digital asset businesses to cover other types of digital asset businesses, right? And also together with section 26, you can see that a digital asset business operator shall obtain a license from the minister upon the recommendation of the Thai SEC, right? So if you want to operate as a digital asset business platform, you need to comply with all laws and regulations that stipulate by the respective authority here. However, to consider regulated activities and businesses, we also need to check the exemption addressed in the notification issued by the SEC as well. I will conclude this later on, so I'm going to skip this. I made this page to show you, to summarize the emergency degree, what the emergency degree regulates. So the emergency degree regulates the offering of newly issued digital tokens, which you can see on the left-hand side of this page. And also, this also can be called as a primary market. And also you can see from the right-hand side as well that the emergency degree regulates digital asset businesses, the secondary market, right? So for more details, the decree sets different requirements for different type of players in the market.
Sorry, Khun Prin, you can continue the presentation.
Okay, sure. So for more details, again, the decree set different requirements for different type of players here. And you can see that if you want to get involved in this digital asset ecosystem, for example, let's say as ICO investors or ICO portal, or the issuers that you want to raise funds through the ICO, or you want to operate as a digital asset business. You also can consider these different requirements that set by the Thai SEC, right? So for the exemption, the notification of the Securities and Exchange Commission, Kahoot 11, you can see that they exempt two types of digital assets from the emergency degree. The first one is the utility token, and the second one is stablecoin. I hope that you already got a glimpse what is utility token and how to differentiate utility token from the security type token, and also what is stablecoin from the introduction that talked early today in today's workshop. But in brief, you can see that if the platform want to provide exchange services for utility tokens or tokens specifying the right of a person to acquire specific goods or services, will not be regarded as business regulated under the law. Also, brokerage and dealer businesses, in the case of the purchasing and selling of digital assets, of which its value is backed by Thai baht currency. I would like to highlight here as well that backed by Thai baht currency. What does this mean? So this means that the notification of the SEC Kahoot 11, right, does not include all types of stablecoins in the market. right? So this is also the thing that you should bear in mind.
ดีนะก็เห็นมีหนักอีก
กำลัง
So I would say that there is also the ongoing amendment, and also in the near future, the Thai SEC perhaps will move the STO, or like specifically for the investment token or the project-based and asset-based to the Thai Security and Exchange Act or the security law. So this is what we will see in the near future, like the amendment of the laws and regulations in this area. Okay. So for legal and regulatory implications here in Thailand, I want to conclude here that first, the inconsistent stances among regulators, as well as the lack of collaboration among different agencies, can lead to a problem in the use of digital assets, cryptocurrency, and their supervision. Second, foreign businesses restrictions can potentially obstruct foreign entities or investors to enter Thai market. Right. I don't say that this is right or wrong, but I just like try to wrap up like key regulatory concern or key remark here. The first one, the type of digital asset businesses under the emergency degree are still limited and do not cover all possible types of digital asset business in the market. The last one, regulatory uncertainty in Thailand may possibly impede its adoption and development in the market. For instance, in connection with the notification Quarter 11 issued by the Thai SEC concerning the exempted businesses, right? That I just highlight that in Thailand, the exemption they still like really limited for the stablecoin that backed by Thai baht currency, right? For the exemption. And I would say that you also can see the way that Thai SEC regulates, right? This kind of ecosystem or respond to this development. I would say that the emergency degree also touched that a part of this huge or like very, very big ecosystem, because they try to regulate intermediaries, they try to regulate relevant activities. But actually, if we consider in detail, we also can see that there are a number of laws and problematic legal and regulatory issues here. For example, those related to the property law, which I will try to explain it later on. But the next one, I would say that to find the proper regulatory framework, right, that can appropriately balance risk prevention and market simulation is still very challenging, right? This means that if we want to find a proper regulatory framework, we want to achieve at least the goal to prevent potential risk in the market, right? But let's imagine that if you issue like very, very strict regulations, it should be very difficult for the players to enter the market and also to compete to each other, right? So we want to promote for fair competition in the market. So that is the reason why that we should consider also not just only to issue regulations to prevent potential risk, but we also want to promote this kind of competition in the market as well. So that is the reason why that I say that it is really challenging. The second point would be the innovative regulatory tools. I will explain about the regulatory sandbox later on. A regulatory sandbox initiative is also a part of innovative regulatory tools. And also in brief, this is to create the innovative regulatory tool to promote evidence-based regulation. I will explain it in detail. And the last one, from the hard law, soft law, and also innovative regulatory tools to respond or to regulate this kind of activities and also this new technology, we may consider the use of self-regulation as well. But the use of self-regulation is also not, I would say that not applicable in every jurisdiction or every country. One of the main reasons is that the lack of industry standard organization, right? There is no comprehensive guideline for self-regulatory efforts in a number of countries across the world. Okay. I'm going to skip these few pages due to the time constraint, but I would like to move to this one. Other relevant legal and regulatory implications. First, I would like to begin with this page. This is the diagram that from the crypto asset key development, regulatory concern and responses produced by the European Parliament last year. You can see from this diagram. There are, after all, many ways to define the term crypto asset, right? Moreover, the above is a snapshot of what is out there now. The crypto market continues to evolve, so what holds true today may require an update in the future, I would say. That being said, by defining the overarching categories broadly, such as in this study, new subcategories may be created thereunder. So this is very challenging, right? To summarize, tokens can be investment tokens or utility tokens, or even hybrid forms of token as well, right? And also, why we need to understand the structure of crypto assets or digital assets in this regard, as it also leads to the different legal and regulatory consequences. So back to this diagram, a type of token that might be the main focus of our talk today can be the so-called investment token. You can see the investment token. Investment tokens sometimes also referred to as security tokens or asset tokens. These are those tokens that typically provide their holder right in the form of ownership right and or entitlement that are similar to dividends. Investment tokens are generally issued for the purpose of capital raising. So that is the reason why that is also linked to what we are discussing today about the cryptocurrency and also investment, right? And show similarities to traditional debt and equity instrument. However, the term investment token is also used to refer to traditional securities or other assets that have undergone the process of tokenization as well. Next, I would like to reflect the complex characteristics of crypto assets. So that is the reason why that I pick up this taxonomy of stablecoins within the crypto cube. In particular, the so-called stablecoin in this page. The European Central Bank introduced this crypto cube, which allows an asset to be identified based on criteria that define crypto assets. Different stablecoins can be identified using the same three criteria, namely the absence of an issuer that is responsible for satisfying any attached claim. Right horizon exists, right? And also the centralization of responsibilities over the stablecoin initiative. And the last one should be what underpins the value of a stablecoin and its stability in the currency of references, right? It is interesting to see that from the report produced by the European Central Bank, at that point of time, at least 54 stablecoin initiatives are in existence. of which 24 are operational. Besides, the overall market capitalization of operational initiatives almost tripled from 1.5 billion pound in January 2018 to more than 4.5 billion in July 2019. Between January and July in the past 2 years, the average volume of stablecoin transactions was 13 billion per month, right? In addition, this is to show user geography, which is also significant for us to understand how should we regulate crypto asset business, right? Why? The reason is that if we want to regulate digital asset platforms that, let's say, that operate in Thailand or in our country, but we all admit that, right? This kind of platform is kind of cross-border, have its like kind of cross-border features. And from the left-hand side, you can see like firm location and also user location. It can be different, right? This is also very difficult, like how we should regulate such platforms. For example, in Thailand, if you want to trade or if you want to invest in cryptocurrency or digital tokens and so on, how can I say? It also not like, how can I say, restrict you as an investor to invest with the license platform with the Thai SET, right? Or Thai SEC. But you also can invest in cryptocurrency in like foreign platform as well. It depends on what you want and depend on what product that you are interested in, right? So the next one. So for the legal and regulatory implications of digital assets, I would like to begin with this phase that this is very challenging because while many legal systems treat certain rights as object of property right, they may not recognize purely intangible objects as fitting object of all property rights, right? Because cryptocurrency and also digital tokens, they have this kind of intangible feature, right? So firstly, the life of ownership is particularly problematic. So I put here the term property problem, and we might call this the property problem. And it boils down to whether any given legal system is able to accommodate digital commodities as well. So aside from the property problem, the assumption behind digital assets is that performing legal operations on the token, such token that represent the life of physical objects, also affect operations with the right it represents in the context of digital asset as well. So the question is whether performing operational operations with the intangible token in a technical system has legal consequences for real world, right? Including right in physical assets. So we might call this the expressiveness problem. And it boils down to the extent to which a digital asset successfully embodies the real world asset. It represents and enable legally effective dealing with that asset. Numerous jurisdictions are currently dealing with these problematic issues, but the solution adopted maybe like we need to wait and see, okay? So let's move to the ownership and possession. This is the two most important concepts in the law of property, right? Ownership and possession. While definitions differ across legal systems, generally ownership is said to be the most comprehensive right a person can have in a thing and to contain all the limited property rights. Possession commonly implies physical possession of a tangible thing, right? So this is a problem, right? Again, in legal systems like Japan and Germany, I would say that intangible objects are recognized as fitting objects for limited property right, but not ownership. However, other legal systems have less strict definition of what can be the object of the right of ownership due to the time constraint. I will not dig deeper in details. But possession is also important because it plays a vital role in the law governing how assets are transferred and in the law governing what remedies are available to protect one property right in an asset. Right. So from what I have mentioned before, here is the proposed solution on what we can do to ensure regulatory clarity. So it may be essential or desirable to define how digital assets and crypto assets, including cryptocurrency, may be object of right of ownership under suitable countries' law, whether via general amendment or the establishment of a separate special system. Okay. So this one is also from the industry report produced by the Cambridge Center for Alternative Finance. And you can see that what I highlight here with the blue color is like the unclear is capable of ownership, and also the physical possession is also impossible for purely intangible things. So this that what I want to reflect from what I have mentioned earlier about the problematic legal and regulatory issues here. So apart from the ownership and also the possession related issues, for the legal and regulatory implication of digital asset, you also can consider the title of digital asset as well. So I put here like the question that, does the legal system allow for a straightforward transfer of digital assets? And also what differences must be taken into account between different types of digital assets and crypto assets? Again, this also reflects that why we need to understand the categorization of digital assets or crypto assets, right? So the next one, you can see that I put here the issue about smart contract. I also put here a number of questions here. What kind of actions are planned to be automated, and how are they to be automated? Is the proposed transactional script operation consistent with the standard contract formation criteria? Or what dispute resolution procedures are in place, and what enforcement options are available for the smart contract, right? So in brief, the legal characterization of computer code that record affect legal operation is currently unsettled. There is a general recognition that the law should follow the intentions of market participants, and certain jurisdictions have taken decisive steps to recognize the legal validity of the contractual arrangement that record in whole or in part in code rather than prose. The law governing smart contract is in its early days and still developing. Questions surrounding their legal status and enforceability, interpretation, technological best practices, and dispute resolution system will all be spaces to watch, right? So in all cases, it is desirable to identify with precision what role transactional scripts are playing in the digital asset trading system, and to be vigilant as to the transactional and systemic risks they may present as well. Again, so where digital asset system involve a central counterparty, it may be easier to determine the applicable law. So that is the reason why that, as I have mentioned before, this kind of businesses have like kind of cross-border features. So it might lead to the jurisdiction, territoriality, and private international law issues as well, right? So truly decentralized system, on the other hand, will likely cause significant problem for the application of existing choice of law rules, okay? So to regulate digital activities in digital asset ecosystem, I also put here that again, we can separate it into primary market activities and secondary market activities, and also the way that Thai SEC regulate digital asset businesses also can reflect something related linked to this one as well. So this is also from the report that produced by the Cambridge Center for Alternative Finance. But due to the time constraint, I will not explain in details, but I just want to show you that the legal and regulatory consideration for primary market activities. For example, in Thailand, we also set the requirements for the ICO portal, for the issuer, and also for the digital asset businesses in the market. If you want to operate as a digital asset business, you also need to comply with all requirements as set by the Thai SEC. Here is also inconsistent with what I have explained for the emergency degree. Because you can see the left-hand side one is also the legal consideration for the issuance and also legislation. So there are a number of questions that we should ask ourselves when it comes to the legal and regulatory considerations. For example, how is the token construct, right? And what word-based legal instrument and code-based technology are used, and also to question like electronic register recognized as legally valid. For the right-hand side, also regulatory considerations. You also should be able to differentiate between the legal and regulatory or laws and regulations as well. So for example, what regulations does the issuer not need to comply with, and does the issuer have to issue a prospectus? So this is all kind of questions that when it comes to the legal and regulatory considerations, and I would like to put it here as well for your reference. So for the next one, so for legal and regulatory considerations for trading activities, so it's more likely to be like for the secondary market. So same with the previous one. So with providers are required to comply with existing regulations and market conduct rules, right? But also to meet more specific requirements, in particular when holding investor funds and assets, you also need to design these kind of laws and regulations properly to respond to this development. I will skip here, and I would like to address here the regulatory considerations. So from the report produced by CCAF, they also try to summarize that first, recognize that crypto asset is not a homogeneous concept, but like an umbrella term to describe an array of tokens that exhibit a wide range of characteristics. Also gather empirical evidence to inform regulatory approaches is needed. This is also to create a typology based upon the nature and form of such token, right? The fourth point also emphasizes here again that to use an evidence-based approach to develop, right, or to understand the type of token and their function, underlying infrastructure, and other key attributes are necessary, right? So if you are interested to read more for certain aspects, I would suggest you to read this publication that produced by the CCAF last year about the legal and regulatory considerations for digital assets. Okay. So we should ask ourselves, can the government regulate cryptocurrency or crypto assets? The reason why I raise this question because we can see that there is like kind of cross-border features like embedded in this kind of cryptocurrency and crypto asset activity. So can the government really regulate? Can the government regulate cryptocurrency and crypto assets? And also, I would like to exemplify here that why China is cracking down on Bitcoin. Okay. So in brief, due to the time constraint, I'm trying to speak like really fast. But if you have any questions, you can try to reach me through my email, and I'm really happy to discuss further on any issues. Okay. So China first moved in 2013 to restrict its bank from using Bitcoin as currency, citing concern is inherently speculative nature threatens the country's financial stability. Over the years, the government has become even more worried about this, and since May, Beijing moved to effectively shut down all crypto mining operations in the country. Right. In late June, the central bank also required payment firms and banks shut down the accounts of individuals involved in crypto transactions. So I would like to skip here, but I just want to reflect that what is going on in other countries. It's also very, very interesting to see because this concept is also relatively new for us. So if we can capture the early lesson learned from other countries and also try to implement laws and regulations or concept or solutions in our country successfully, it should be a good idea as well. So in China, there is also a scholar that raised this, said like the more popular Bitcoin becomes among country citizens, the less power that government has to share economic policy, right? So I think how can I say, there are plenty of issues that we can discuss further on this because it also depends on the country, and also I think there's no one size fits all solution to respond to this development. Okay. So for the comparative study, I would like to summarize here in this page. In terms of the regulation in Hong Kong, to conclude in Hong Kong, first of all, I need to explain that why I choose Hong Kong to compare with the Thai regulatory approach. Because actually now I'm doing my PhD at the Chinese University of Hong Kong. And also, it is also very interesting to see that in Hong Kong, the authority also like kind of use the different approach to regulate this kind of cryptocurrency and digital asset in their country. So in brief, the authority in Hong Kong is quite receptive to the utilization of crypto assets, which can be seen from the attempt of the authority as well as the association. It is important to note that crypto assets related policy and regulation in Hong Kong could also influence domestic market in that country as well. So in Hong Kong, it also the increase in ICO in Hong Kong after the 2017 prohibition in China also seemed to be the best example under this discussion. And also moreover, the cross-border features of crypto assets could necessitate the international coordination of crypto asset regulation as well. So in Hong Kong, I would like to summarize that they use the soft law mechanism, or they use they issue the guidelines, guidance, and also they implement their traditional security law with the case. Okay.
Right. I think that it is the presentation. Can we now move on to the Q&A session, Kunpali?
Okay, sure.
Okay. No, you can still continue the presentation if you have to.
Okay. Wait me a minute
Sorry,
because I
sorry
think
to interrupt.
my laptop is running out of battery, so I will pause.
All right, that's totally fine. Take your time.
Yeah. Let me a bit.
All right, everyone, let me remind you once again that if you have any questions, feel free to type them into the chat box, and there will also be Q&A session later. There will also be a Kahoot session, which will be after the presentation, and there will also be e-certificates given for the participants who participate in the Kahoot session, so stay tuned.
Okay,
right.
so I would like to maybe spend maybe a few minutes to end my session with the regulatory sandbox initiative as requested by our organizer. So what is this regulatory sandbox? So I would say that regulatory sandbox is the initiative that you also can call it as innovative regulatory tool as well. And this is from the publication of the World Bank, and regulatory sandbox initiative can be used to improve access to investment, minimize legal uncertainty, create rules for new products and business model to adapt to test and learn approach as well. So I summarize here that regulatory sandbox allow you to come up with the evidence-based regulation. So what is the evidence-based regulation? Is like the regulator change their law. Let's imagine that maybe in the past many years, regulators act like, how can I say, to be like a police to prohibit you to do anything that maybe not like, how can I say, permitted under the laws and regulations. But under this kind of new concept or new regulatory approach, regulatory sandbox allow you to work together with the regulators, and also regulators also can have a better understanding in your business model, and also you also can adapt or like test and also experiment your business and also your innovation with the regulators. So this is also very interesting to see because many countries over the world try to adopt this regulatory sandbox initiative. And I think regulatory sandbox initiative also have their features to give you like, how can I say, to be more flexible on responding to these kind of new technologies. And for example, in Thailand, we also have that kind of multiple sandboxes here, and also the sandbox launched by the Bank of Thailand, the sandbox launched by the Thai SEC, and as well as the sandbox that launched by the OIJ as well. So it depends on the type of businesses that you want to operate here, and also what about the laws and regulations related to the government or the activities that you want to do. So it depends on the type of, for example, if you want to operate a business like concerning like kind of capital market activities, you also can go for the Thai SEC sandbox. But if you want to, for example, let's say that use blockchain technology in cross-border money transfer and so on, you also can go for the Bank of Thailand sandbox. Okay. So for the COVID-19 and cryptocurrency market, actually, I just want to show you here that, first of all, I would say that from all the stats, it is difficult to say that the COVID-19 has a direct effect on cryptocurrency investment. Accordingly, for this part, I'm going to try to demonstrate interesting information related to the cryptocurrency as well as the impact of the COVID-19 on other fintech sectors in general as well. So you can see from this report, this is also the report that's launched by the CCF as well. And we try to gather the data across the globe to see the changing in terms of the transaction and also the number of users in this kind of all fintech businesses, all type of fintech businesses. So actually from this report, I can quickly summarize here that despite the COVID-19, fintech continue to grow globally. On average, fintech firms reported a year-on-year increase in the transaction number and also volume of, let's say that, if I remember correctly, like around 13% and 11% respectively in the first and second quarter of the year. So this is also consistent with the report that what I'm doing for the World Bank as well. That I have been working with the World Bank group for the project concerning digital economy in Thailand. And we also can see this ongoing trend about the influence of the COVID-19 on this kind of digital business. Okay. So the last one, the trends in Lego career path. So I also I pick up this news as well that the lack of experienced talent is particularly problematic within the turbocharged crypto community. I really like this word. I really like this statement. Also, just because, how can I say, you can see that this concept is quite relatively new, right? And also just because there are no specific law regulating, let's say, blockchain and cryptocurrency in some countries, does not mean that it is free for all, right? Several existing laws apply to capital markets, investment, technology, anti-money laundering, and data protection, right? Still likely involved. And you also general corporate legal services, right? Giving legal opinion on a token design, structuring a token sale, drafting of specialized documents, for example, the white paper, reviewing, auditing smart contracts, and also legal consulting on compliance are all services that a lawyer could provide in this space. And I think blockchain and digital assets, legal consultant or attorney should be like and will be the one of the most in demand future job, right? So thank you very much for your attention. Due to the time constraint that I apologize that maybe I explained it like too fast, but I really happy to discuss with you further on the issues. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Prawi, so much for this amazing session. And I'm very certain it was very useful for the participants. I believe we have received some questions during the presentation. However, we may not be able to answer all of them. So we will now proceed to the question that we have, which is, do you have a projection how Southeast Asia's general crypto and blockchain activities will progress when COVID-19 is over? Will the progression be maintained at high rates? What part of the economy will it benefit or negatively affect?
In terms of COVID-19 and crypto digital assets, let's say market in Southeast Asia, as a part of research team member that we also try to gather this kind of information. But as I have presented in the last part of my presentation, I think COVID-19 really influenced positively to this market, and also, but I think it's still very difficult to sum up to conclude that this is also the result of the COVID-19 on the cryptocurrency market. But I think we can see that the kind of ongoing trend, for example, the increasing number of the transaction volume of not only for the digital asset market, but also for the e-commerce market as well. So I would supplement that to this. I would say that we at least COVID-19 negatively impact all the sectors, I would say. But we also can see that more and more people embrace in this technology. And I think maybe it also, perhaps we also can see like the changing in the trend or like the technology adoptions or like the growing number of like this kind of digital businesses in the future more and more. And also because many people embrace on this kind of technology, I really think that we also should consider for the idea of like digital economy, and also how this kind of digital technology can help us to trigger our economic growth in the future as well. I hope this answers your questions. And if you want to get like any kind of specific statistic, please reach me and I can send you the data that I gather for the project later on. I will type my email address in the chat box and yeah, reach me anytime.
All right. Thank you, Kunprin, for the answers. And if any participants have any further questions, feel free to contact Kunpawi, excuse me, feel free to contact Kunpawi through the email that Kunpawi has left us. And thank you once again for this wonderful session. I hope everyone enjoyed the presentation. At this time, I would like to thank all the speakers once again for this useful information and for sharing your expertise with all of us here today. It has been our pleasure to have such amazing experts to provide us the knowledge and exchange your views on this matter today with us here today. We'll now proceed to the Kahoot session. Participants, you can go to kahoot.it on your browsers, and I will also send. Okay, I think we now have everyone. Congratulations to every one of you. You all did a really great job in the Kahoot session, and I hope you enjoyed the Kahoot session. It was very competitive, and the places changed all the way. So, as the event has now come to an end, I would like to invite the Vice President of ALSA Thailand to give a closing speech. Please welcome Ms. Nishakun Akkarakamthon.
Good morning, afternoon, and evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is my honor to be providing the closing remarks for today's event. First and foremost, on behalf of the ALSA Thailand National Board and participants, I would like to take this opportunity to express our gratitude towards our honorable experts, Mr. Parin Panichapak, Mr. Alexander Kashalo, and Mr. Pawi Denviranon, who had dedicated their valuable time to share their expertise with us, as well as Ellen and Avery and Sombun Ritichai Panuat Pasawan law firms, who had sponsored our financial and law webinar series, The Wolf of Law Street. Without their support, this workshop would not have happened. I am also grateful towards all of our ALSA Thailand National Board members who have put all of their efforts into perfecting the event today. Lastly, I would like to thank all participants for joining us. We hope that our event has provided all of you with a more profound comprehension on the topic of cryptocurrency crimes. Ladies and gentlemen, since this cryptocurrency, a safe market webinar is a part of our financial and law webinar series called The Wolf of Law Street, we look forward to seeing you again in our next episode. Once again, thank you very much for attending this event. I now proclaim this as the end of our cryptocurrency, a safe market webinar. ALSA, always be one.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Nishakun, for the closing remarks. Well, everyone, that wraps up our first workshop, which is the kickstart for our legal and financial series, The Wolf of Law Street. If anyone is interested in our events in this series, you can follow us on our Instagram at ALSA Thailand or on our social media listed on the screen. Once again, we would like to express our gratitude towards Alan Avery and Sombun Ritichai Panuat Pasawan for sponsoring this series on behalf of ALSA Thailand. Thank you all of you for making time in your schedule to join us here today. It has been our pleasure to host this event and wish you all a pleasant day. We apologize for any inconvenience that may occur today, and the link to the form has been sent through the chat box. Make sure you fill in the form so we can provide you the e-certificates later. Thank you, everyone.